And we're starting things off with the Baltic Sea UFO. In 2011, the Swedish deep sea diving team Ocean X picked up a strange sonar image while searching for a shipwreck on the floor of the northern Baltic Sea. This is the image here. A lot of people think it looks a bit like the Millennium Falcon. Totally agree. When the image got out, though, all kinds of tabloid newspapers started having a field day with it, saying the object looked like some form of technology, like a UFO, for example, or remnants of some kind of ancient civilization. The object has been described as approximately 60 meters in diameter, resting at a depth of around 85 to 90 meters. Now, while everyone was having fun imagining what kind of fantastical ancient underwater city could have existed or what alien species could have crash landed their ships, scientists looked at the image and were like, looks like it's most likely a natural formation, so that kind of sucks. But the UFO thing hasn't been totally ruled out, so that means it's a UFO, right? Next up we have eddies, which are basically the black holes of the ocean. Eddies are basically circular currents, sort of like a whirlpool, that form within the larger ocean currents. Eddies can be small or big, and when I say big, I mean some of these things can actually be seen from space, which is terrifying. Now, there's not as much mystery surrounding eddies as there is with actual black holes in space. Pretty obvious where you end up if you're dragged into one of these massive sized whirlpools, but arguably scarier too, because with a black hole, at least you can hope you'd end up in some new fantastical part of space. With eddies, you just drown. And that's the other horrifying thing about these massive sized ones. Nothing can escape, just like a black hole. Anything caught up in it gets sucked in. And if you're thinking you can just wait it out, well, maybe you can, but some of these whirlpools can last for hours, days, or in some cases even years. So good luck. Number 8, the Cuban underwater city. The discovery of the Cuban underwater city was made by a Canadian company named Advanced Digital Communications, or ADC, in 2001, using advanced sonar technology. The company identified a series of geometrical structures lying about 650 meters deep off the coast of Cuba. These structures looked to be symmetrical and arranged in a grid-like pattern, almost like the layout of a city. The team returned to the site a second time with a remote underwater vehicle which was able to retrieve more sonar images which were interpreted to be various structures which didn't seem like natural formations. Some suggested this was the remnants of a lost civilization maybe, or an ancient city submerged by rising sea levels, but many marine archaeologists and geologists thought these seemingly man-made structures could also, once again, be natural formations, and given how long it would have taken for a possible ancient city to have sunk this deep, the timeline is just off. There were no known cultures able to build structures like pyramids that existed that long ago. There is still speculation till this day about this one though. And at number 7 we have the Portuguese manoa. So this thing may look like a jellyfish, but not quite. This species of Siphonophora can be found in the Atlantic and Indian Ocean, and as cool as they look, they're very dangerous. Those tentacles can grow to about like 30, even sometimes 100 feet, and they pack a punch. They contain venom-filled stinging structures which they use to paralyze their prey. Their sting is pretty excruciating, with some describing it feeling like being cauterized by a hot knife. Yikes. And although these things aren't typically lethal to humans, there have been some people who have died as a result. These things don't just cause pain, their sting has been known to cause fever, shock, and even mess with people's lung and heart activity. And even their detached tentacles have been known to still sting on occasion. Again, deaths for humans are rare, but smaller fish and crustaceans stand no chance against these things. But that's going to bring us to number 6 with the lion's mane jellyfish, aka giant jellyfish. The lion's mane jellyfish is a big, scary bugger found in the Atlantic Ocean. Its tentacles can stretch out over 100 feet. Yeah, a giant creature that can sting you with tentacles longer than a blue whale. And those tentacles, again, are very lethal. They're armed with stinging cells that can cause extreme pain to anyone unlucky enough to get too close. They've been known to sting swimmers and even cause breathing problems if the venom gets into the air. And the lion's mane jellyfish comes in different colors. Some of them are kind of orange, a little bit red. They got big bell-like bodies that can be over 8 feet wide. And these jellies mostly hang out in colder waters where they can drift along with the currents, giving folks a surprise if they swim to one. Number 5, the Great Blue Hole. The Great Blue Hole is a renowned underwater sinkhole situated off the coast of Belize in the Caribbean Sea. It has a circular shape with a diameter of approximately 1,000 feet or 300 meters and a depth of around 410 feet or 125 meters. Formed during past ice ages when lower sea levels caused the collapse of a cave system. It's a pretty amazing sight too, because it has this very distinct deep blue color that really contrasts with the surrounding shallow waters. It's kind of freaky, but as freaky as it is, it attracts a lot of tourists and professional divers who want to go down there to check it out. Divers exploring the hole have encountered unique stalactites, limestone formations, and a number of marine species, mainly sharks. Yeah, I've seen footage. It does look beautiful, but there are a lot of sharks of various species, and that's kind of scary. Okay, time for a story. This one has to do with the Titanic. It's a personal story, actually, once again. Yeah, before I get to this, though, I'll talk a bit about the wreckage, because that's the theme of the video. I probably don't need to give any of you a history lesson on the Titanic. I'm sure most of you know more about it than I do. I haven't even seen the movie, I'll admit. But the haunting wreckage was discovered by a deep-sea explorer named Robert Ballard in 1985. Fascination with the disaster began around then, and of course peaked with James Cameron's movie in 1997. All right, so interesting story here. I actually had relatives who were set to board the Titanic, but my great-grandfather, who was just a little kid at the time, at least I think it's my great-grandfather, I gotta brush up on my family history, but he had stayed out a couple nights before to watch a fire that was happening in the village they lived in. It had been raining, it was cold, and he ended up catching pneumonia, so they didn't end up leaving on the Titanic. They did leave on a boat later on, and apparently they threw flowers down over the wreckage site. Anyway, if they did board, they would not have survived. They would have been on the lower decks with Leonardo DiCaprio playing the fiddle, or whatever they did down there. Again, I have not seen the movie. But yeah, thank God, right? All of you wouldn't have little old me in your lives if things had gone a different way. How would the world cope without me in it? I don't know. At number 3, we have giant squids. These mythical creatures turned out not to be so mythical after all, and in 2004, the first actual sighting of these elusive creatures were spotted in Japan. Giant squids live in all parts of the ocean at varying depths, and the largest giant squid on record measured in at 59 feet, weighing nearly a ton with eyes the size of beach balls. 59 feet. That's about the height of the life-size Gundam that was built in Japan. Like, take a look at this image. Yeah, that tall. Look at how it towers over the people. Now replace the Gundam with a freaking squid. That is nightmarish. That's a real-life Kraken. The Kraken is not fictional. And I'm willing to bet that in ancient times there were even more of these giant beasts swimming around out there. And number 2, we have the Bermuda Triangle. How can we do a scary Atlantic Ocean video without bringing up the Bermuda Triangle, right? The amount of spookiness and mystery surrounding this area has made it notorious for years, with reports of mysterious disappearances of ships and aircrafts beginning back in 1950. The boundaries that make up the Bermuda Triangle are typically said to be Miami, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda, forming a triangle shape in the North Atlantic Ocean. The stories of vessels and vanishing without a trace and instruments malfunctioning within this area have stirred up a whole whack load of conspiracy theories over the years. Is there ancient technology down there messing with our equipment? Is the area cursed somehow? Now, many experts say it's got to do with just weather, strong currents. The thing is, even with all their explanations, there's still this big question mark hanging over the place. And coming in at number 1 is the Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek device retrieved from a shipwreck in 1901 near the island of Antikythera. It's a complex mechanical calculator dating back to around 100 BCE. The mechanism has gears and dials, so it's probably used to track astronomical positions or predict celestial events like eclipses and planetary motions, and researchers believe it might have been used as a tool for teaching astronomy, perhaps. It's made of bronze and consists of around 30 gears with inscriptions describing the functions of the various parts. It's often referred to as the first analog computer ever discovered. It was pretty incredible because it shows a level of technological knowledge that we just did not know existed at the time, and there's still a lot of mystery surrounding it. The purpose of the device is still mostly unknown till this day. We could just kind of speculate what it was used for. Of course, there have been plenty of fun conspiracy theories surrounding this too. Was this alien technology shared with our ancestors, or are those all those years ago? Is there more of this technology that's simply been lost to time? Again, there's a lot of unexplored ocean out there. Who knows what we'll find in the years to come.
Starting us off at number 10 is a plastic bag. That's right, folks, even the deepest spot on Earth isn't free of man's worst creation ever: single-use plastics. During one of the deepest dives ever recorded, famous underwater explorer Victor Vescovo traveled 7 miles below the ocean's surface down to the Mariana Trench. While down there, Vescovo and his crew discovered tons of new and interesting things, but not all of them were cool. He reported that he also found a plastic bag and even some candy wrappers down at the deepest place on Earth. So that's cool. Folks, I don't think it's a hard concept to understand, but please don't litter. Things like plastic bags were not made to help out anyone but ourselves. These cause a great danger to our wildlife all around the world, and if we have to use these materials, just please dispose of them properly. No one else should have to put up with your trash except for the garbage man.
In our number 9 spot today, we have the fact that life exists. The first time anyone ever went on a deep dive into the Mariana Trench, no one was exactly expecting to find signs of life in the extreme environment of the deep sea. So it was quite a shock when they found out it was absolutely teeming with life. Because of the lack of sunlight, or really any light, in the Mariana Trench, you won't find any plant life or algae, but there are tons of living beings, from microorganisms to scary looking fish. All of the life in the trench has had to adapt in one way or another in order to live in this environment, whether that is naturally developing pressure-proof shells, or having insane eyesight that can catch even the faintest glimmer, or having other heightened senses that can help detect prey or predators. All of these special adaptations help us understand more about how life in the deep sea evolved, but some can even be used to help us advance scientifically and medically. It is no small feat to head down to the Mariana Trench, but the more we can discover down there, the better.
At number 8, we have Jupiter-like microbes. Say what? Back in 2012, during the Deep Sea Challenge expedition, researchers found these fuzzy mats of bacteria clinging to the rocks at the bottom of the trench. Usually one of the first things scientists look for in the harshest places on Earth are any signs of life possible. It helps them understand how life can be possible in parts of the world or even the universe that don't operate like Earth's habitable places. When scientists explored the Serena deep part of the trench with a robotic lander, they found evidence of a thriving microbial community down and around the deep sea rocks. These microbes appear to feed off of the chemicals produced with the sea when the sea floor rocks react with the water. Because they don't rely on the falling of the marine snow, it raises questions and possible hypotheses for scientists that maybe this is how some life forms exist in the farthest reach of our universe, such as Jupiter and Saturn's moons.
In our number 7 spot today, we have the Daikoku Seamount. This seamount is located within the Mariana Arc and was fairly recently found to be hydrothermally active. So basically, it is a functioning underwater volcano, which is super cool. That is not even the cool and unexpected discovery I want to talk about today. During the submarine Ring of Fire expedition in 2006, it was realized that this seamount happens to also feature a pool of liquid sulfur. That might not seem like the most amazing thing, but it is definitely very cool. Firstly, the way it looks is absolutely insane because it has gases rising off of it which appear as smoke, but like smoke underwater. I don't know the science behind it, but all I know is that it looks like nothing I've ever seen before. The next reason why this is super cool is because of the fact that this is almost never seen here on Earth, and the only other time we found a comparable pool of sulfur to this one has been on Jupiter's moon Io.
At number 6 we have the Mariana snailfish. At 8,143 meters below the surface, scientists discovered a new kind of fish they call the Mariana snailfish. This is a white translucent fish that has broad wing-like fins and an eel-like tail and slowly glides near the bottom of the ocean floor. You can also see its liver from the outside of its body. Ew. While this is the deepest they have ever found an actual fish, researchers don't believe there is much more swimming below that. The amount of pressure is so high that they don't believe any fish is chemically able to withstand the destabilizing effects of its proteins at the depth. So the Mariana snailfish may just be the deepest dwelling fish on the entire planet, which I'm sure we are all hoping for some large, weird, space-looking like deep sea monster, but for now we will just have to settle for a snailfish. It's okay, little guy, I still love ya.
In our number 5 spot today we have human mercury pollution. It was once believed that methyl mercury was mostly produced in the top few hundred meters of the ocean, which would have limited the mercury bioaccumulation because it was thought that the fish who make their home in the deep sea would have a very limited opportunity to ingest the methyl mercury. But a recent discovery has shown that this is just not true. According to 2 separate studies which were presented at the Goldschmidt Geochemistry Conference, there is clear evidence of the presence of both man-made and natural methyl mercury, which is quite toxic. This means that since this is spreading to the absolute depths of the Mariana Trench, the pollution is turning out to be much more widespread than what was once thought. They know that it is coming from the mercury in the upper ocean because of some sort of isotope evidence. The reason this discovery is important is because when mercury reaches the depths of the sea, it is turned into methyl mercury, the super toxic one, by tiny microbes. From there it gets eaten by small crustaceans, who then get eaten by fish, who then get eaten by bigger fish, and so on and so forth, and then it gets into our food web, which is dangerous for both humans and animals. It is unclear exactly what is going to happen with this information, but I guess it's good to have the whole picture in order to make the best, most educated decisions.
At number 4 we have Urethines plasticus. As we learned earlier, the Mariana Trench has not gone untouched by plastics. Well, back in 2014, scientists discovered a new species at 6,900 meters below, and the tiny crustacean was found to already have ingested some of Earth's plastic. Therefore, they gave it the name Urethines plasticus. With the support of the World Wildlife Foundation in analyzing the newly discovered species, scientists found a 6.5 millimeter large piece of large microfiber made up of 80% PET in its body. PET is a substance found in a variety of commonly used household items such as water bottles and workout clothes. Now, it's also found in deep sea wildlife, so much that we're naming deep sea creatures after plastics. This one is alarming because in the deepest parts of our planet that we know the least about, even less than space, we're still finding humans making their mark before humans even get there themselves. Yikes. Let's hope we don't have to start naming species Rubberus americanus or even Coca-Cola soft drinkus.
In our number 3 spot today we have ocean sediment. Okay. There's sediment in all of our oceans, so this one definitely doesn't seem like it should be on this list, but the Mariana Trench sediment is unique because of its extreme depth. While there are of course large fish who eat other fish, what do the small fish and living creatures who don't eat other fish eat? Since there's no plants, that is why researchers collected samples of the sediment that lays on the floor of the Mariana Trench, to see what it is made out of, to see what the heck these guys are eating. As it turns out, if the organisms aren't eating chemicals, they're eating the leftovers from the fish that live closer to the surface of the ocean. These leftovers float down to the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean, which is referred to as sea snow, and that is what becomes the meal for the smallest creatures living in the trench. Kind of gross when you think about it, but I'm happy for them.
Coming in at number 2 we have scalding hot water. That's right, just like Katy Perry, the Marianas Trench is hot and cold. At the deepest spot on Earth where basically no sunlight can get through, you would expect that the water was extremely cold, right? Wrong. Well, okay, maybe kind of right. The water usually stays between 34 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit, but also wrong. The water at the bottom of the Mariana Trench can also get scalding hot. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench there are many different hydrothermal vents vents, and the water that erupts out of these vents can reach temperatures of 700 degrees Fahrenheit, which is enough to scald anyone swimming down there. But fortunately, the pressure is way too high for anyone to actually swim down there, so that won't be happening anytime soon. That being said, for those that decide to dive deep down there, make sure that the deep sea sub you're in is not only pressurized, but also has an AC, because you don't want to cook like a boiled lobster.
In our number 1 spot today, we have giant amphipods. I will never not be fascinated by these things, so here we are again with more giant amphipod facts. Amphipods are little crustaceans that can be found in most waters on Earth, and they're kinda like shrimp. The Mariana Trench variety are absolutely shocking compared to the amphipods we are used to, and that is because they are like the Shaquille O'Neal of shrimps. They're huge! These guys can be found 35,797 feet or 10,911 meters deep in the trench, and while most amphipods are like 2 to 3 centimeters or about an inch long, these guys are a whopping 34 centimeters or just over 13 inches long. Like, what? A scientist explained that the discovery is a bit like finding a foot-long cockroach, and I have to say that the surprise may be the same, but I would rather find a huge shrimp than a huge cockroach any day. Before the discovery of these guys, researchers didn't even know that amphipods could grow this large, so it's safe to say that they certainly were not expecting this discovery.
Number 10. Immortal jellyfish. The immortal jellyfish is a species of small, biologically immortal jellyfish found worldwide in tropical waters. Given the nickname immortal jellyfish for its ability to revert back to a polyp stage while it's starving or in danger and basically escaping death, researchers believe this jellyfish may hold the cure to cancer. Under normal conditions, its life cycle is divided into 4 parts. The union of the male and female gametes produces a larva or planula. It then attaches to the seabed as a polyp, similar to an anemone. The polyps then release a phura or a young jellyfish into the phase prior to sexual maturity. They become jellyfish, reproduce sexually, and start over. But if they are stressed by an environmental threat, the jellyfish revert. After reproducing, they return to the previous phases, becoming polyps in the ocean floor again. As far as scientists know, jellyfish can repeat the process indefinitely. Thus, they are said to be biologically immortal. They can be eaten by a predator or fall into the hands of a swimmer, but they do not die of old age, which is pretty cool. Number 9. River at the bottom of the Black Sea. The Black Sea is one of the most isolated from the world's oceans, and there is a river flowing along the bottom of it. Now, it's just not a normal river. Oh no, it's complete with trees, leaves, and even waterfalls. One major difference is that the underwater river, when rounding a bend, moves in currents spinning the opposite direction from those on land. It has been an intriguing aspect of the ocean since it was found. According to scientists, if the river was on land, it would be the 6th largest river in the world in terms of the volume of water flowing through it. The discovery of the river, announced on August 1st, 2010, was made by scientists at the University of Leeds, and it is the first of its kind in the world. Number 8. The Mariana Trench. In the western Pacific Ocean, you will find the deepest part of the sea. The Mariana Trench is deeper than the height of Mount Everest, 43 miles wide, and a massive 1,580 miles long, which is 5 times longer than the Grand Canyon. A certified US national monument, only small areas of the Mariana Trench have been explored. James Cameron reached the bottom in a submersible vessel Deep Sea Challenger in 2012, with the last successful attempt to search the ocean floor coming in 2020, when the Chinese submersible Fenduji made it all the way down. Several new species of underwater creatures have been discovered in the Mariana Trench, with most living on the surface of the ocean floor, including a type of sea cucumber. Explorers will find themselves in total darkness as they continue to understand what else lies in the deepest parts of the ocean and how marine life manages to survive. Number 7. Los Mahabalipuram Pagodas. The Lost Pagodas was long considered a myth by many because of the lack of scientific evidence of its existence. But in 2004, when the infamous Indian Ocean tsunami hit, for a brief moment when the waters parted, large rock-like structures emerged from the water and were witnessed by many onlookers. The Lost Mahabalipuram Pagodas in India, making it an incredible discovery. The remains of an ancient city were found in 2001 off the coast of India. Scientists retrieved many different items from the large city, including artwork, hand tools, fossilized bones, and pottery shards. What What makes the discovery incredible is that the city is thought to be around 9,000 years old, which predates to the earliest Indian civilizations that sprung up 4,000 years ago. There is still not a lot known about this ancient city, as scientists and archaeologists continue to search the area for more clues and debate how old the city really is and who once inhabited it. But wow. Number 6. The 2,400-year-old boat in the Black Sea. Archaeologists working with engineers from the Black Sea Maritime Archaeology Project, aka MAP, have discovered a 23-meter shipwreck that has laid undisturbed for more than 2,400 years. The find is believed to be the oldest intact shipwreck ever discovered. Thanks to the lack of oxygen in the Black Sea and the fact it was discovered a mile below the surface means it is exceptionally well preserved. The 75-foot vessel is thought to be ancient Greek. It still has its mast, rudders, and rowing benches. Speaking to The Guardian, Professor John Adams, the principal investigator with MAP, explained, "A ship surviving intact from the classical world, lying in over 2 kilometers of water, is something I would have never believed possible, and that it will change our understanding of shipbuilding and seafaring in the ancient world." The ship is thought to be a trading vessel. However, up to now, the design has only been seen on the size of ancient Greek pottery. The find is an archaeological first. The team have left the vessel untouched, apart from a small sample that was used to carbon date it by the University of Southampton. Number 5. $150 million of lost silver. At the bottom of the Atlantic for more than a century, a 150-year-old steamship had been found in 2003. The ship is the Republic, which sailed from New York in 1865, just after the Civil War, carrying 59 passengers and crew and mixed cargo meant to help New Orleans recover from the war. About 100 miles off Georgia, battling a hurricane, it sank in waters a third of a mile deep. Its cargo of lost coins, experts say, may now be up to worth $150 million. That would make it one of history's richest treasure wrecks. "It's a dream come true," said Dr. Donald H. Kagan, an expert on 19th century coins who is advising the company that discovered the wreck. There are piles of coins. The company Odyssey Marine Exploration of Tampa, Florida, who announced the find, said it hoped to retrieve all the coins. The company has retrieved more than 1,600 gold and silver coins, and none are dated later than 1865, tending to confirm the wreck's identity, said George Stem, the company's director of operations. For some reason, even the silver coins are in great condition. Part of it is surely the physical environment down there, he said. The icy deep explorers are still finding can often preserve objects, even precious metals like silver, that normally corrode easily. It's like finding a real treasure, and I would definitely like to receive some of those special coins. Number 4. Giant squid. The Kraken is a legendary sea monster of enormous size that is said to appear off the coast of Norway. Now, this is a mythical creature, but there is some truth to it. A giant squid was found on shore in Denmark in 1853. The giant squid is as elusive as the legend it inspired. It lives so deep underwater that we have limited information about it. However, we know it has the largest eyes of all living creatures, grows up to 18 meters, and is frequently hunted by sperm whales for food. The weaker giant squid generally flees when confronted by a whale. However, it sometimes fights back when cornered, and it's not unusual to find sperm whales with scars left from their battles with giant squids. It wasn't until the turn of the century in 2001 that humans saw the giant squid for the first time, and only a few years after that when it was finally photographed, making it one of the most elusive on the planet. The giant squid has long been known to exist, but capturing it on film has taken scientists extensive time and voyages to the deepest parts of the ocean where life is difficult to sustain. Number 3. Elongated skulls. Saquayum is a cenote located in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. It is a place that locals feared, and in 2012 a team of divers discovered the reason behind its fearsome reputation. An underwater survey discovered 2 chambers of the cenote littered with human bones, including deformed skulls. Archaeologists spent 2 weeks exploring the 2 chambers. The skulls belong to different sexes and ages, so they aren't thought to be sacrifices, which begs the question, why are they buried deep underwater? Archaeologist Bradley Russell, who made the discovery, believes the dead may have been buried as some form of ritual, or that they could be the victims of a plague that swept through the area. You wouldn't want them near the rest of the population, and you wouldn't want to drink the water either, Russell explained. Regardless, that's creepy. And why are the skulls elongated? Are they another species of human? I have so many questions. Number 2. Baltic Sea Anomaly. In 2011, a sonar image was taken by Peter Lindberg, Dennis Erberg, and their Swedish Ocean X diving team while searching for treasures on the ocean floor in the Baltic Sea. What the picture showed was a seemingly non-natural 200-foot circular object with passageways and stairs. The discovery looked like something out of a Star Wars film, and many people believed it was a spaceship that sank to the bottom of the ocean. Samples taken from the area in 2012 were given to Swedish scientists who said that there was nothing extraterrestrial about the area, but I'm not too sure about that. What Ocean X and the crew had found was weird, and many still think there is a UFO lying at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, and there's another expedition to the area planned soon. And coming in at number 1 is giant underwater pyramids. Off the coast of Portugal in the Atlantic Ocean is an anomaly that experts have been unable to fully understand or explain. Picked up by oceanic GPS technology, measurements of a structure were found, leading researchers to believe that 2 giant pyramids of ancient times sit underwater thousands of feet below the surface. The GPS data received back has the structures with a base of 8,000 square feet and about 150 feet tall, making these pyramids pretty giant in size. But there's very little explanation into their existence, leaving it entirely up to speculation. Why would they be there? Is it another hidden city? Who knows? The pyramid has been underwater for about 20,000 years. Considering this is around the time of the last ice age, where glaciation was melting from its peak 2,000 years prior, whatever civilization, human or not, that was around before the ice age could be responsible for building the pyramid. While the Portuguese Navy still hasn't determined the origins, many might question why this hasn't been first reported sooner than late 2012. To further support the idea that this pyramid could have been built by different civilizations, archaeologists from the Portuguese Association of Archaeological Research have recently discovered evidence on Pico Island that suggests their belief that humans existed in the Azores region before the arrival of the Portuguese thousands of years ago. Spooky.
Kicking off the list at number 10, let's dive in. Barracuda. Exploring the deep is dangerous if you're a diver, of course, not because of the deadly ocean life surrounding your every direction, but because if you come up too quickly, major health problems will follow. But if not that, probably a deadly barracuda, equally as scary. This deep discovery was made by user Arira95. I'm pulling real events for this one from real deep sea divers. We're going to the real content for this one, so buckle up. One time when my parents visited Mexico, they went diving and my mom was slightly lower than my dad looking at the ocean floor. My mom had on a gold necklace that was floating in the water around her, and it was a sunny day and a fairly shallow dive at this point, so it was sparkling. My mom looked below at all the critters when my dad grabbed her and started frantically shaking her arm to get her attention. I'm sweating reading this. She looked up and a barracuda was directly in front of her, staring intently at that shiny necklace. She slowly moved up her hand to cover the necklace, and they slowly and calmly moved away from it, and it took off without bothering them anymore. But still pretty unsettling, and taught my mom to be a little more aware of her surroundings when she's diving. I mean, fair, but I mean, no one expects a barracuda. Also, if your mom wants to dive with chains on, that's pretty sick. You won't catch her slacking. Even in the depths of the sea, she's like, I'm ready. I don't care who shows up. I don't care who I bump into. Water shoes and bling. Check and check. Let's go diving. Number 9, venomous sea snakes. Last year in the deep waters off Australia's coast, of course it's Australia, always Australia, a sea snake that was once thought to be extinct has been rediscovered. How fun. He's like, psych, you thought. Just when you thought the ocean couldn't get even more dangerous, now we got new sea snakes to worry about. The short-nosed sea snake hasn't been seen in 23 years, and they would often live near Ashmore Reef. But last year, divers found one 67 meters below the surface in the twilight zone, which is pretty wild. Just lurking in the dark, just hanging out, meditating. The Australian Institute of Marine Science is responsible for this discovery, and the team calls this a second chance to protect and further understand the species. And an up-close personal encounter is brought to life from this diver. Apparently, this happens from time to time before major storms. Snakes can sense an oncoming storm, so what they try and do is latch onto something heading in the direction towards shore. So they don't have to burn energy and they can just grab onto like a barrel or something and then just, make its way there. Pretty smart. So this diver was exploring, nothing was going crazy or anything like that, and then he felt a snake wrap onto his leg because he felt a storm was coming in. The diver didn't even know that a storm was coming. The snake did, and he wrapped its snake self around his leg. As soon as I was in the shallows, it uncurled and headed up the beach where it hid under a breadfruit tree. That was from a diver named Specialist Celery. Great name, also terrifying experience. I don't like snakes in water or on land. Next, number 8, surprise tiger shark. Yeah, not something you want to see diving in the deep. A tiger shark. A glowing shark, left shark, I don't care. I want none of the shark smoke. This deep sea discovery comes from user Stormcutter. Sick name, a little bit better of a diver name. They say, I know a guy who was out diving for crayfish and lobster by the ocean. Also, the I know a guy trick, it was totally you. Don't lie to us. Crayfish often hide under the rocks, so as he was diving, a tiger shark emerged from a cave and rammed him, breaking his arm and ribs. This guy got shucked by a shark. That's insane. He said the shark was testing him out. Yeah, I'd say. That's pretty sweet, man. I'm glad you survived, honestly. I bet you couldn't wait to tell people what happened. You're like, oh, my ribs? Yeah, I got sideswiped by a tiger shark. Yeah, he's feeling testy. You know how tiger sharks do. If you're wondering what that experience may have looked like, this is footage of a rare tiger shark in New Zealand, lurking in the deep. Number 7, Humpback Mama. This deep dive happened about a year ago. A diver named Sidetrack38, that's their username, not their legal name, although that would be pretty sweet. Sidetrack38, he's like, what's up? They were exploring the ocean one afternoon when all of a sudden they got charged by a mother humpback whale. The divers shared their experience online, saying, her curious calf had swam around us and we were between her and the calf. 2 of us never even saw her coming. We were watching the baby, but our 3rd diver saw her come. She kicked down and swam under us last minute. We didn't see anything until that 60-foot freight train passed just underneath us. Whales are beautiful. They're beautiful but terrifying creatures, my friend. Glad you didn't get a broken rib or back in this case, because whales, they like to go pretty deep.
Just view.
Just trying to figure us out.
Incredible.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Justin, you want the overheads off?
Look at that view. I hope we're getting screen captures of this.
Number 6, Mako shark. Mako sharks are one of the fastest sharks in the world. I'll start by saying that. Just get that fact in your head. Given this list so far, I would also start sweating if I were you. This is a scary one. This deep dive horror story comes from username One Dumb Diver. Great name, they clearly made this account just to share this occasion, so let's dive in. Nowadays, we dive with shark shields, which emit electronic pulses that freak the sharks out and keep them away. But back then, what we used was essentially a chainmail sleeve. The idea being that sharks hate the taste of metal, so if you give it your arm, it'll bite down, decide you're gross, and then move along. So I wait, it comes over, and I make a perfect move to give it my arm. However, just before the crunch, it occurred to me that I had left my sleeve on my bed. Now I had a huge open, gashing wound on my arm from the bite in open water, and I trailed blood everywhere. Not an ideal scenario. So once the shock finally wore off, you realize that you're in salt water, and salt and open wounds, they don't feel good. In a panic, I dropped my weight belt and shot up to the surface without any sort of waiting period. Not great. Because I hadn't been paying attention to the currents, I was approximately a quarter mile downstream of my boat, which meant that I had to swim back up to it. After getting bitten by a shark, imagine having to swim, that is a nightmare scenario. Glad you're okay. Also, you're not a dumb diver, you're experiencing the things, you're figuring it out. You're doing great. You're brave. I don't even like going in lakes. Number 5, more sea snakes. Coming from Patrick667 about a year ago as well, they posted, so 3 days ago I went snorkeling off Mimba Island in Zanzibar. Everything went normal and we started heading back, so I grabbed my net and I put my black fins, my black mask, snorkel, and black wetsuit inside. Once back ashore, I grab my bag, jump off the boat, and head to the rental office to return said equipment. At that point, I feel my bag is moving somehow. At first look, it seemed like a flat black worm squirming quickly. After rotating the bag, I realized I was looking at only the tail of a 1 meter long black sea snake, one of the most venomous reptiles ever, trying to get out of the net. Like in the lobby. How it got there, I have no freaking clue. That is a nightmare scenario. Imagine being like, thanks so much, I had a great time. Here's a sand dollar. Also, don't mind the venomous snake. Number 4, the frilled shark. Back in 2004, marine biologists discovered this dinosaur, the frilled shark, just hanging out, just lurking about 870 meters below the surface. So if you're anywhere around there, watch out. This one looks like an eel almost. It's so scary looking, it's so slippery and quick. Frilled sharks can grow up to 7 feet long and they fight in the dark. They don't need to see to attack you, which is pretty terrifying considering all these deep dive stories are all in the pitch black. So unless you're a deep diver, you're not really gonna run into the frilled shark. Have you ever dealt with one of these? Are you a diver? Are you watching this because you're a diver? Please comment down below if you are. Comment some of your personal experiences. These were a nightmare to read. I couldn't even finish half of them. Everything is so dangerous and so fast underwater. Number 3, snapping shrimp. This little guy can literally create a sonic boom as it attacks you. That's how fast it is. You won't see him coming, and neither did this diver. Here's a clip of a mantis shrimp punching through a diver's gear. Yeah, right through their water shoes. Bam!
Ow, that really hurt.
They're so quick. Oh my god, they're tiny, but they really hit. They're often found in coral reefs, oyster reefs. These little guys, these pistol shrimp, they hit their prey at 100 kilometers per hour. And in doing so, a large air bubble is created, and because this, Mike Tyson shrimp is so quick with the left hook, the following pop is around 200 decibels. The sound alone can stun its prey, and if they're lucky, it sometimes kills them. That's how you want to go out. You don't want to go out with one of these Superman punches to the neck. Number 2, comb stars. Ocean life is by far the scariest thing out there. We have no idea what's in our oceans. We discover some crazy shit every year. Some deep sea fish with bioluminescence are for sure aliens, while others are just natural predators. That looks scary. Like the comb star, for example. This guy was not in Finding Nemo. He would have been a weird addition. A comb star is a starfish that contains tetrodotoxin, which is this deadly neurotoxin that can cause paralysis. Yeah, Finding Nemo, that movie would be over in 8 minutes if this guy was there. Per every gram of comb star flesh, there's enough toxin to take out 500 mice. So if you have a mice problem, honestly, you can call one guy. It's a very specific weird call, but I know how you can do it. A little bit of tetrodotoxin. Tetrodotoxin? Tetrodotoxin, that's what it's called. And finally, coming in at number 1, the electric eel. Awesome, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. Great. The moray eel, first of all, don't do what he just did. Don't go up to a random eel and start rubbing it like it's a genie lamp. That's not smart. It's not a Great Dane. You don't want to do that. That was the moray eel. That one can bite your fingers off in like 2 seconds. But you should never touch an eel in the first place because a lot of them are electric. Yeah, just like that MGMT song that's now stuck in our heads. As its name suggests, there's types of eels that can mess you up even if you were to get the first hit. Specifically, the newly discovered 2.5 meter Electrophorus volti. Appropriately named after Alessandro Volta, aka the guy who invented the battery, this eel can release a shock up to 860 volts, which is more than 7 times the voltage of a wall plug. A swimming wall plug that gets hungry. Nice. We love nature. I'm never swimming again.
Coming up at our number 10 spot, we have the ghost shark. The ghost shark lives in the deep ocean and lives for about 30 years. It looks like a ghost, but arguably even scarier than one. It eats primarily crabs, shellfish, sea urchins, and octopus. Apparently these fish have been around even longer than dinosaurs. Their big eyes can appear dead in the water, but glow when they are exposed to light, giving them that ghostly look. In our number 9 spot, we have the Atlantic wolffish. The Atlantic wolffish kind of looks a bit like a blob with very sharp canine-like teeth. So sharp that it can crush the shells of sea urchins and crabs very easily, and that is what they eat. They can live at depths of 2,000 feet, and apparently they can produce an antifreeze that keeps their blood pumping in freezing water. This fish's overbite and general scary look definitely terrified us humans when we discovered it. In our number 8 spot, we have the red-lipped batfish. This fish is found near Peru at the depths of 10 to 249 feet. They eat small fish and small invertebrates including shrimp, crabs, worms, and mollusks. They aren't good swimmers, but they use their pectoral, pelvic, and anal fins to walk on the ocean floor. Like this. Anal fins. What? I'm 5. I wonder if whoever discovered this fish was more confused than scared to have found a fish that literally looks like it's wearing red lipstick. In our number 7 spot, we have the dragonfish. The deep sea dragonfish lives about 2,000 feet below the surface and is most certainly a ferocious predator. I mean, look at their teeth. They are clearly born to be fierce. They are quite long, coming up on 6.5 inches, and yes, they do have wing-like fins, which is definitely why they were called dragonfish. They are also called
called the sea moth, which, yeah, no, that makes them seem less cool because, you know, moths are a pain. So we're gonna stick with the dragonfish. Little is known about their history thus far, which is just another reminder that the ocean is huge and we have so much more to learn. In our number 6 spot, we have the Dumbo octopus. I can't think of the Dumbo octopus without thinking, aw, so cute, it's like Dumbo. It has protruding ears that are like fins, and that is why it was given the name. Its fins act like propellers and propel them upwards, like so. Personally, I don't think this creature is very scary, maybe because the cute name put it in a positive light, but if you are someone that feels uncomfortable looking at a cluster of dots, don't look at its legs. I am that person, and just looking at its suction cup identical legs made me a tiny bit queasy. Apparently there are about 15 different Dumbo octopus species, which is pretty cool, and also they live in the depths of at least 13,000 feet. They are the deepest living octopus known to man as of yet. They measure to about 8 to 12 inches and they can measure to about 6 feet high. They are quite hard to spot as they are known for their ability to camouflage. Pretty cool. In our number 5 spot, we have the frilled shark. The frilled shark can live to depths of up to 5,000 feet, which means they were most likely not spotted by a casual diver. This eel-like shark has 6 pairs of gills that are across its throat. It usually swallows its prey whole, but its 300 teeth would also guarantee that its prey would most likely not escape anyway. This fish is referred to as a living fossil as it looks so similar to its ancient ancestors. Honestly, this fish looks old and worn, and a little bit like a snake. Honestly, it looks like it could be the demon of the sea. In some pics of this shark, it looks truly terrifying, and everyone, including divers, would be scared if they were ever to stumble across this fish. In our number 4 spot, we have the giant squid. The giant squid is indeed giant. It is 40 feet long, that's about 12 meters. Yeah, this definitely scared the breath out of some divers somewhere upon its discovery. It is one of the largest animals without backbones in the world. They live at depths of 1,000 to 2,000 feet, which definitely has made them hard to study. Apparently, they also have the largest eye in the animal kingdom, as their eyes are about 10 inches in diameter. They are carnivores, so they usually eat deep sea fish, young sharks, smaller squids, and humans. Just joking, but honestly, I'm sure if they had the opportunity to eat you, I bet you they would. In our number 3 spot, we have the gulper eel. Okay guys, let's be real, a diver wouldn't be able to see most deep sea fish because, well, we can't necessarily dive into the deep sea yet, lol. However, I'm sure divers have seen them via pictures and after being captured in deep sea fishing nets, so there's that. The gulper eel is one of them that was most likely seen because of a deep sea fishing net. This fish has one large mouth, and its mouth is bigger than its whole body, which makes it a tad scary to look at. It usually feeds on small crustaceans, so there's really nothing to fear. It wouldn't eat you. It has a long pink fluorescent tail that helps attract prey with its light. I personally think it is quite chilling to look at and would love to know if you agree in the comments section below. In our number 2 spot, we have the hatchetfish. So many scary fish. I'm gonna have to put on something funny after this, like The Big Bang Theory. My newest obsession. I know I'm late to the game, whatever, yeah girl is a late bloomer. The deep sea hatchetfish basically looks like an alien with its big bulging eye. Oh, and you know, it glows in the dark. Yeah, glows. Pretty cool. Which honestly makes it maybe one of the coolest fish. Cool but terrifying. It has a row of luminescent organs lining its belly. It apparently mimics daylight above, which throws off predators below it. They live at depths up to 3,200 feet. They have a pretty large mouth that is tilted upward and opens wide to scoop up meals. In our number 1 spot, we have the goblin shark. When this shark was discovered, surely everyone was terrified. It literally looks like a goblin trapped in a shark body. This creature is one of the most scary looking deep sea creatures that I have ever seen. Apparently they can be as long as 4 meters, but some hypothesize that they can be longer. They have very long snouts and protruding mouths that hold many teeth that contribute to their scariness. They can crush their prey, such as shellfish, easily with their teeth. They can eat a fish whole, and that is usually what their diet consists of: rat tails and dragonfishes. They can weigh up to 460 pounds. Their lifespan is quite long at 30 to 35 years. Even though it looks quite terrifying, it does have a flabby body with small fins, so it can have quite sluggish movement.
Number 10. One Dumb Diver. This first story is from Reddit user One Dumb Diver, and boy does he live up to his name. His first mistake was heading out for a 90-foot dive alone, but he was just 15 years old and thought, how bad could it be? He needed to clear his head, so he headed out on his family's boat to the reef. While floating down at 90 feet, second mistake, he was only rated for 60. He saw a 3.5 meter mako shark. Mako sharks, according to the diver, only have two speeds: curious and lunch mode. Guess which mode this guy was in. Divers now use electronic pulses to freak out sharks, but he was using the older method of a chainmail sleeve. They bite the metal, they think, ugh, gross, swim away. But mistake number 3. He forgot the sleeve on his bed at home. Shark bit down, there was now an open, gashing wound in the water, and salt was burning his flesh. Mistake number 4. He had drifted a quarter-mile downstream from his boat. Luckily, he made it to shore, and 172 stitches, physical therapy to repair his tricep, and some crazy scars later, this deep sea diver never made the same mistakes ever again. Number 9. Funny from the outside. Okay, this one is scary and funny at the same time, and yes, it also involves sharks. Sometimes fear of the thing itself makes you do some pretty weird things to avoid it, which eventually makes the worst thing happen. Reddit user NZ Viking Rugger has to wear eye contacts, which makes wearing a mask even more of a necessity. The idea of going without them surpassed any other fears, even as a shark headed straight for her. While on a dive, a friend behind her had collided with a shark and her mask was knocked off. She couldn't stop thinking about the fact that her mask was knocked off, that even as a shark headed straight for her, she was more afraid of that. Usually sharks are more curious than anything, and usually they just shoulder bump you as they turn at the last minute, but this one wasn't. She was beelining for Viking. She kept calm though, and at the last second the shark was about to knock her mask, the diver just headbutted the shark in the nose. She may be the only person to ever headbutt a 11-foot shark because she was afraid she might lose her mask. And she's alive, so good for her. Number 8. Food poisoning. I can't think of a worse time to get food poisoning than like while scuba diving. Actually, I probably can. There's probably something worse, like I don't know, in front of like your crush or something like that, but this one is definitely up there. Reddit user someguy12 recounts the moment he had to deal with seeing yesterday's lunch on a deep sea dive. He was 14, a relatively new diver, and just hit 20 meters below the surface with his dad and brother. About 45 minutes out, a foreboding churning began in his stomach, and, well, he started to upchuck into the water. The worst part is that the fish surrounding him thought it was lunchtime. They were like, wow, look, sandwiches. No one was within arm's reach, so he had to keep clearing his regulator, puke, and then repeat until he was like all clear. No one noticed, and he just kept on with the rest of the dive. I am as horrified as I am impressed with his perseverance, but like, dude, go up to the surface. That's enough. Number 7, shark rescue. Being a rescue diver means you often have to put yourself at risk in order to recover people who got themselves into trouble. Keith Baugh is a rescue diver in the Bahamas, and he was on a mission to find a missing diver. He was submerged in the infamous blue hole in the Bahamas and finally caught a flash of the diver's watch on his arm. He started swimming to the bottom and began to notice that the bottom was moving. An entire school of sharks were swimming right over the body. It was breeding season and there were so many sharks he couldn't see the bottom. He found the diver though, and as quick as he could began swimming up to the surface. Thing with diving though is if you rise too quickly you could get something called the bends, aka decompression sickness. The shark started following him, and when he reached 70 feet he had to take a break to adjust, and therefore spent 8 minutes surrounded by a school of sharks with a dead body in one hand. Like how he got out of there without turning into shark food is pretty astounding. Number 6, shipwrecked.
Tom Pritchard had over 1,000 dives under his belt, was known for being incredibly detail-oriented and cautious. Nothing should have gone wrong, but of course, something did. Just what? Remains a mystery. Pritchard was working on attaching a mooring line to the Andrea Doria. The Andrea Doria is a shipwreck 300 miles outside of New York. When the line was attached, the other crew members explored the wreck before rising 75 minutes later. But where was Pritchard? The Coast Guard swept the area, but no one was found, and in the end, the captain ordered the crew not to return to look for him. After all, they had no idea how he disappeared, so going back down there could be even more dangerous. They could lose more people. The Doria has always been considered dangerous and has claimed 15 lives previously. As the years go on, the wreckage continues to get less and less stable. But whether Pritchard was trapped by the ship or died due to equipment failure, no one will ever know, and it just is. No one will ever know. Number 5, Snake Island. The problem with deep diving is that if there is a problem, you can't just rush up to the surface or you might literally explode internally. Decompression sickness. So staying calm is paramount, but it's not always enough. 3 divers decided to take on a 180-meter dive in Snake Wall in the Georgia Strait. One of the men stayed in the shallower area while the other 2 decided to dive as deep as they could. While they were down there, something happened, something went wrong, and while the second diver almost made it to the surface, he too perished as well. They were experienced divers, they wouldn't have been able to go in there if they weren't, so just exactly what happened to the 2 at the bottom still remains a mystery, because it could have been as simple as an equipment failure, but there's no proof. Number 4, they checked no. There is a reason why high-risk activities require you to sign and fill in a waiver or consent form. They ask about your health because you or someone else could be put at risk because of it. This one diver decided to check no on the form when it asked if they had epilepsy. Flash forward to a seizure attack in a pitch black cavern 85 feet below the water. In this story submitted by Reddit user Sharkbite, they noticed one of the diver's lights weren't moving. After heading over to see what was wrong, they noticed that the diver had no regulator in their mouth, which is the breathing apparatus, and their eyes were completely checked out and their teeth were clenched together. They forcibly purged the air into their mouth with the regulator, which moved their cheeks enough to indicate air was going in. That was good enough for them. The rescue diver then grabbed their arm and swam up straight 60 feet to get them to surface, risking the bends. Once to the shore, the rest of the team helped get their gear off, and though in shock, the diver recovered like nothing happened. Thankfully, they were only 10 minutes into the dive, otherwise they would have both ended up sick. The rescue diver was put at risk, shooting up to the surface to save them both, and said they would do it again if need be. And I mean, I would too, but like, boy would I be pissed. Hopefully this person didn't discover that they have epilepsy below the water. That could be a thing too. But if they knew and didn't say, someone's gonna get a stern talking to. Wow. Number 3, Sanctum. Even the most experienced divers can encounter deadly complications on dives, and to this day no one knows what brought Agnes Maloka down. Agnes was a stunt diver who had a fierce desire for underwater exploration. By age 29, she'd been featured in multiple documentaries and even acted in the movie Sanctum. But while on a dive in the tank caves in Australia, even her expert navigational skills were no match for the sinkholes, caves, and silt. Somehow she became separated from her diving buddy, and silt from the cave walls disrupted her vision. If you breathed too hard, the air bubbles would pop and disturb the ceiling and it would come crashing down. The following day, they found her body 500 meters from the entrance of the cave. Evidence suggests that she remained calm until her last breath, but no one knows what the exact reason was for her struggle. It could have been she ran out of air. Anything could have happened, but either way, she lost her life. Number 2, Plura Caves. Norway's Plura Caves used to be a spot where experienced divers would test their mettle, but ever since this incident, they have been closed indefinitely. In February 2014, several divers prepared to make the long trek to the other side of the cave, but 135 meters down, they lost 2 of their members. One member, Jari, got stuck halfway in a narrow passage, which caused immediate panic. That far down, that's a very dangerous thing. Fellow diver Patrick handed him an extra cylinder to prevent hypercapnia, which is excessive CO2 in the bloodstream. so like hyperventilating, but Jari panicked while switching and he drowned right in front of Patrick's eyes. Can't imagine that. Patrick did everything he could to stay calm and had to keep moving, but behind them, divers Kai and another man named Jari were due for a shock. Jari saw the body of Jari and panicked even though Kai tried to help him, and sadly Jari succumbed to the same fate. With the passage now fully blocked, Kai had to trek 11 hours back the same way he came all the way to the start. 2 months later, Patrick and Kai went back secretly to recover their friends, in which they succeeded, but no one else is allowed in those caves ever since then. Number 1. Dion Dreyer. And last but not least, the tale of Dion Dreyer. If this story doesn't haunt you, I don't know what will. Dion passed away in 1994 when his body was lost 270 meters in Bushman's Hole, South Africa. For 10 years his body remained there, but extreme diver David Shaw decided it was time to bring him home. But the dive went nowhere near as expected. With Shaw's experience in situations like this, there wasn't a doubt in anyone's mind he'd be okay. Shaw assembled a team and made the descent 270 meters down to find Dreyer. But when Shaw tried to put the body in a body bag, the skeleton started floating due to the wetsuit Dreyer still wore. At those depths, any panic or disorientation could be deadly, and indeed it was for Shaw. As he wrestled with the body and began his ascent, his light got snagged and he panicked because he already overexerted himself. Dave eventually passed out, and before long Bushman's Hole claimed his life as well, but almost poetically, the two bodies floated up to the surface together. Shaw made sure he fulfilled his mission even with his last breath.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Thai boys and the curse of the princess. In Thailand, there is a goddess by the name of Jiao Mei Nang Non, which translates as reclining princess. This spirit is said to inhabit the cave and mountainside of Tam Luang. This is the exact spot, the cave where the Thai boys got stuck in June 2018, making headlines. Basically, 12 boys aged between 11 and 16, all part of the Mupao Wild Boars football team, went to a cave with loads of snacks and a football and were planning on celebrating a birthday. Oddly, an unexpected torrential downpour flooded the cave and the boys were trapped inside. Their coach went to look for them and also got trapped too. Now locals began thinking that the boys had been trapped at the whim of the princess spirit. Legend has it that once upon a time a beautiful princess fell in love with a stable boy, and knowing that their love was forbidden, they ran away together. They hid out in the exact cave. When they heard that her father and his army were searching, that's when they took to the cave. Sadly though, the boy was caught and killed when he went out to find them food. When the princess found out, she stabbed herself and bled out in the cave, which is now said where her blood flows as water. While the change in weather may have come as a result of the unamused princess, it seems that she may have also helped in their rescue too. Amid the bid to free them, locals began pleading with a statue of the reclining princess outside of the cave, leaving her offerings to appease her. As we know, eventually all 12 boys and their coach were saved. Was it the princess's mercy? The dive was 1,450 meters deep, and actually one diver did lose his life in the rescue attempt. Coming into number 9, we have the handshake. This story had me feeling very queasy. It was shared in Real Clear Life online magazine. The author was sharing a story of their grandfather's time working in military rescue and recovery during the Vietnamese War. They wrote, "My grandpa was in the Australian Navy during the Vietnam War. They were taught to shake the hand of dead sailors when recovering the bodies to make them feel more comfortable and familiar with handling the dead. On my grandpa's first recovery dive, he shook the hand of a dead sailor and the arm came clean off the body. He had to keep his cool and bring the body back up, but still that's pretty messed up. Honestly, that is truly the stuff of nightmares. If people know that hands and arms can break off, why would they get them to shake them? Like, no. Coming into number 8, we have the bends. A great Radiohead song, but a horrifying diving reality. The bends are a very real and very terrifying part of diving. Diving down to deep ocean depths puts incredible pressure on the body, and if you resurface too quickly, you can get decompression sickness, also known as the bends. Now this can, in worst case scenarios, lead to paralysis and death. It is a tale as old as time with divers, and even now experienced people, professionals, are still dying. All it takes is some bad calculations. In 2009, a National Geographic diver was photographing a shipwreck in Greece. Now some say he contracted the bends as part of a ghoulish curse. The ship that he was photographing was the Titanic's sister ship, the Britannic, which sank in 1916 after hitting a mine. 30 people died. I honestly think that's kind of offensive though. The poor guy just, yeah, died of decompression sickness, and he was a professional. It happens. Coming in at number 7, we have the shark cage. I personally do not feel great about shark cage diving because while it would be a great opportunity to see a shark up close and personal, you know, you'd also be seeing a shark up close and personal. It has to be done right, and baiting rules are often abused by shark diving companies, which makes it a bit unsafe. So anyway, in October 2016, diver Craig Capehart was on a shark dive expedition and got the shock of his life when a great white shark somehow ended up on the inside of the cage with him. Have a look at the footage he shot. Holy mackerel, that is one big mackerel. Or shark. They're all fish, right? I actually think that the shark here is like kind of cute. He's like, boop, bloop, 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 what you doing, what you seeing? He probably doesn't understand and he just wants to know what was going on and what the people in the cage were freaking out about. But then I remember that actually he's a shark and he literally probably wanted to eat them. Let's watch that clip again, shall we? No. So much no. Coming into number 6, we have the Call of the Crabs. There are some truly horrifying deep diving stories on Reddit, and this one made me feel kind of ill. Responding to a Reddit AMA asking divers to share underwater stories that scared the hell out of them, Team Pterodactyl shared a horrifying visual memory. They were diving off the coast of Florence in Oregon, a spot where a surfer had gone missing just a few days before. They shared their story saying, "I was diving with some friends and we found a body on the ocean floor in the creepiest condition possible." They go on to share what condition that was. They said he was the surfer who'd gone missing a few days prior. He wore a wetsuit with his legs, arms and head exposed. Crabs had eaten the flesh from his exposed bits, so basically he was a torso with a skull and skeletal limbs. Ugh, holy crabs, man. Arthropods are just trying to get by, but like, ugh. I honestly don't think I would recover from seeing that. Coming in at number 5, we have the Mystery Man. So the same Redditor as above shared another scary diving story, and I'm not sure which worries me more. This next story is about a 1 AM mystery diver who appeared from nowhere. They wrote, "The creepiest dive of my life, 2 buddies of mine and I were on a night dive in the Puget Sound hunting prawns. It was around 1 AM and we were a good 100 feet deep, the pitchiest black you could imagine. We used to do this thing on night dives where we would get in a circle and turn off our lights, then stare up the water and watch the bioluminescence float around us like floating stars in watery black space. Beautiful. Only this time we turned off our lights, stirred up the water, and the water glows just enough to reveal a 4th person sitting in our circle. Oh my god, hello unexpected guest, I really don't like where this story is going." They continue by saying, "We were at a dive resort so it wasn't so odd to see another diver, only it was 1 AM, we'd seen no one else prepping a dive on the dock. He was also alone, which is odd considering the dangerous conditions of a night dive in those waters, and he had on no fins and no gloves. I don't know how he swam so well without fins and didn't get hypothermia without boots or gloves. We wore dry suits because it was so cold, but this dude was in a wetsuit with exposed skin, and we thought we saw a giant gash in one of his legs." The story continues. They say, "So the 3 of us all noticed him and we were too scared to move. I could hear my buddies panting in their regs and the guy just smiled and waved and then swam away. Honestly, sometimes people are the scariest water beasties of them all." Coming into number 4, I want you to understand how deep it really gets. Okay, so for some mid-list context, I want to show you how deep the ocean really is. It is an utter horror show. Like I said at the start of the video, we've only explored around 5% of the ocean, so to illustrate how scary it is, I want you to have a look at this from BuzzFeed. Now I'm gonna screen record this scroll-a-thon. Okay, so up here is what we see and know of the ocean. Here's the free diving world record just below. But then we get deeper, then we lose light, things get spooky, we say goodbye to mammals. Then at 6,000 meters, things get pretty worrying. Ah, a ghoul, no. Then even further down at 11,000 meters, we get the deepest point of the ocean. Reject, decline, no thank you, I am a landlubber forever. Or like a landlubber that likes paddling in the ocean, just like a bit. In the shark-free part though, oh. Coming in at number 3, we have the underwater ghost. Is this a picture of the first ever underwater ghost caught on camera. Well, it doesn't look like much, but let me tell you the story. This image was taken by paranormal divers. Yes, paranormal divers, because if you believe in ghosts, why wouldn't they also exist in the sea? The dive took place in a flooded underground cavern 130 feet down, and when the team were investigating, they heard screams coming from the black water. They snapped their cameras and this is what they found. One of the dive team said, "We panned deeply and shot the black water, and the sound of this screaming voice was at the exact site of a diver death." What? They continued by saying, to our knowledge, this is the first underwater ghost photo ever taken. I don't know guys, what do you think? Coming in at number 2, we have the shoes. So I recently did a video on our sister channel Life's Biggest Questions called Where Did the Bodies from the Titanic Go? And I learned a lot of really interesting things, but also a bunch of really sad things. The first time the Titanic wreck was explored by divers was in 1986. Movie director James Cameron made a handful of trips to the wreck when researching and filming the Titanic movie in the 90s. You would imagine that deep divers would have seen some pretty macabre stuff, right? Well, actually, James Cameron said that bodies, even just skeletal remains, are nowhere to be seen. Thousands of people died on board though. At 12,000 feet down, skeletons dissolve very quickly under the pressure. Hauntingly though, what is left of the thousands of bodies are the pairs of shoes that they were wearing when they died, and they are absolutely everywhere. Why is this? Well, because shoes back then were treated with tannic acid, which means they're protected and less likely to dissolve in underwater conditions. Have a listen to what James Cameron had to say about it.
A pair of women's shoes?
Yeah.
Next to a pair of girls' shoes?
These were people. These were people. Those shoes got to the bottom.
Double.
On people.
So every pair of shoes serves as a grave marker where the humans fell to their final resting place, and that honestly actually is a little bit more haunting than seeing a real body. Finally, coming into number 1, I am bringing this straight from the scariest part of the world, deep down in Mariana's Trench, we have Mariana's Song. So remember that strolling adventure that we went on in the middle of this video? Well, way down at the bottom of that is Mariana's Trench, which is in the West Pacific Ocean and is 11,034 meters deep at its deepest spot. Now, this is the deepest and in my opinion scariest place in the world. What lives down there? Well, we've observed a few sea cucumbers, but as there is no light whatsoever, there's no saying what might lurk in the shadows. A strange, unidentifiable sound was recorded coming from the trench in March 2016. Have a listen. The low part is a baleen wail that sounds at 38 Hz, but the high-pitched sound is unknown. It's a whopping 8,000 Hz. What is it? Well, actually, marine biologists and scientists do not know, and it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Want to listen again? What is it? Alright, coming in at number 10, we have the Ghost River of the Black Sea. I love a good mystery, as we all know, but riddle me this. How can a river flow underwater? That is some crazy mythical talk right there. Deep under the Black Sea, there is a river that was discovered only 9 years ago, but has likely flown for hundreds of years. The river looks extremely haunting indeed, and even has trees growing beside it, and a cascading waterfall. The river was found 60 meters deep, and it is massive. It's 350 times greater than the UK's River Thames, and 10 times bigger than Europe's biggest river, the Rhine. What's happening down there? River. Coming in at number 9, this actually makes me really sad, we have the Titanic's ghost shoes. Okay, it's time for some real talk, so brace yourselves. As we know, the Titanic infamously sank in 1912 after striking an iceberg, and 1,500 souls perished in the aftermath, mostly because there weren't enough lifeboats to save those on board. A lot of people literally went down with the ship, and they sank with it in its 2 halves, which are now 12,000 feet down at the bottom of the ocean. That's over 2 miles down. So you would expect that the ship would be absolutely littered with skeletons, and it was for a while, but not anymore. The first time the Titanic wreck was found and explored by divers was in 1986, over 70 years after it had sunk. Movie director James Cameron made a handful of trips down there to the wreck when he was researching and then filming the Titanic movie. When the movie director was asked about the macabre state of the ship, where the bodies are and such, he revealed that actually all of the corpses of the victims have disappeared. Why? Well, it seems that skeletons dissolve very quickly under pressure, and the pressure over 2 miles down into the sea is very, very high indeed. Hauntingly though, while the bodies may have disintegrated, what is left is the pairs of shoes that they were wearing when they died, and they are absolutely everywhere. So why is that? It's because the shoes back then were treated with tannic acid, which has served to protect them from dissolving. Have a listen to this clip.
A pair of women's shoes.
Yeah.
Next to a pair of girls' shoes. These were people.
These were people. Those shoes got to the bottom.
Double.
Every pair of shoes down there serves as a haunting reminder and a grave marker for where the humans felt their final resting place. I honestly think about the ghost shoes of the Titanic a lot. Speaking of a shipwreck, at number 8 we have the world's oldest shipwreck. That we know about, anyway. That's kind of the beauty, right? We think that one thing's old, but then we find another thing, and we just keep on progressing. And I love life because of that. Hurrah. In 2018, divers made an incredible discovery a mile below the surface of the Black Sea. The Black Sea again, we've already heard about the Black Sea on this list. What is going on in this spooky stretch? This particular section of the ocean was just off the coast of Bulgaria, where divers discovered an ancient Greek vessel thought to date back 2,400 years. Can you even believe it? That's older than most cities in Europe. The 23-meter long boat has been preserved by a lack of oxygen on the seabed, which has meant that its mast and its rudders and all the other shippy bits are still looking decidedly shippy. Professor John Adams from the Maritime Archaeology Project said, "A ship surviving intact from the classical world, lying over 2 kilometers down in the water, is something that I would never have believed possible." Well, believe it. Coming into number 7, we have the lost cities. There have been many cities that have been lost to the ocean. The ancient city of Atlantis is somewhat of a legend and it's never been found, but there are plenty of ancient cities that do officially lie in observable ruins. Heraklion, for example, lies off the coast of Egypt near the mouth of the famous river Nile. It was found in the year 2000 by underwater archaeologist Frank Godot, but prior to that, it was thought that, like Atlantis, the city was just a work of lore. It is connected with legends of Heracles and Helen of Troy after all. Have a look at some of the ancient statues found strewn across the seabed. Honestly, how utterly haunting. Some of the artifacts have now been raised from the ocean, where they've been hidden for an entire millennia. As ocean levels rise on Earth, how many other cities will meet a similar fate? That's kind of why sustainability is such an integral focus at this point in history. So from lost cities and old ships, we have what could be the world's oldest computer. Coming into number 6, we have the mysterious Antikythera mechanism. Yay, I said it right. This ancient Greek analog computer was used to predict astronomical positions and solar eclipses. It's thought that this computer was used as a calendar with which to track the 4-year cycles of the old Olympic Games. The mechanism was lost for 2,200 years on the world's second oldest shipwreck. The artifact was initially discovered in 1901 when Greek sponge divers found an encrusted greenish lump, but 75 years later into its future, its true nature began to be revealed. Now we know that the artifact contained over 30 handmade cogs and could nearly accurately track the movement of planets and constellations. The discovery goes to show that the ancient Greeks knew so much more than we thought that they did. Coming into number 5, we have deep sea monsters. Okay, so we're around the middle spot on this list, so I think now is a good time to tell you that actually nature is demented. Like, it's proper crazy down there. We discover thousands of new marine species each year, and well, as you know, the Earth is 80% water, so who knows what else is lurking down there. What we do know is that actually the ocean is filled with an absolute horror show, an absolute lineup of monsters. Here I am bopping in to just name a few that will ruin your day. Meet the sarcastic fringehead shark, the humpback anglerfish, the northern stargazer, the vampire eel, the giant squid, the pelican eel, and of course everyone's mate the blobfish. I'm telling you, it's dark, cold and creepy down there. Coming into number 4, we have Mariana's Sounds. Did I say that the ocean was dark, cold and creepy? I guess I missed out the fact that the ocean is also filled with a veritable horror score of mysterious sounds. Mariana's Trench is the name given to the deepest part of the ocean. Usual ocean depths are around 2-ish miles down, but mate, let me tell you this, Mariana's Trench off the coast of Guam is nearly 7 miles down. No. What do you think lives down there? Sea cucumbers and strange sounds. In 2014, scientists heard a weird pinging sound coming from the waters around the super deep super creep. That's what I'm calling Mariana's Trench from now on. Have a listen and let me know what you think this unidentified sound is. At first, nobody, including our mates the NOAA, were too sure what it was, but now a team of researchers from Oregon State University have decided that the alien-like sound could be a new call from a baleen whale. Still though, this is unconfirmed, and I don't feel good about deep sea sounds, especially when I've seen some of the horrors that live down there. Coming into number 3, we have unexploded nukes. Oh, you didn't know there were lost and discarded nuclear weapons across the world's oceans? Hate to tell you, but yeah, there are. A lot. In fact, a whole host of non-nuclear but still very dangerous bombs are also hanging out unexploded in the deep. Sorry to ruin your day. One fun example, in December 1965, a plane carrying a Megatron nuclear warhead rolled, yes rolled, off the deck of an aircraft carrier into the Sea of Japan, where it stays forevermore. Or until it surfaces. Ugh. There is a 30 kilotron fat man in the Pacific somewhere too, but Rebecca, this is a list about found things, not lost things. Sure, but I'm saying one day they will turn up. Maybe in a sleepy seaside village near you. A big boy bomb washed up in North Carolina in November 2018. That beast was from World War II, 70 plus years, and she found her way to the shore. Honestly, the thought terrifies me. Coming into number 2, we have the spaceship of the Baltic Sea. Some call it the Baltic Sea Anomaly, others call it a crash-landed UFO that sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and some people think it is the spit of the Millennium Falcon. In 2014, an image of the strange object was circulated by professional divers. It seems that the mysterious object is raised 13 feet above the seabed and is surrounded by a very mysterious rock formation. What is it? Well, the website Snopes thinks that it's a big fat fake, but others aren't so sure. Finally, coming into number 1 of our scariest things found in the ocean, we have 100 plus years of human waste. Many of us have seen the tragic videos of wildlife caught up in human trash dumped in the ocean, or the plastic straw in the crying turtle's nose, but actually this horrifying stuff is really just the tip of the iceberg. It seems like we have a disconnect about where our trash goes. When you throw something away, we just forget about it because it isn't our responsibility anymore, but actually it doesn't mean that that thing stops existing. It is estimated that by the year 2050 there will be as much plastic in the ocean by weight as there is marine life, which is actually mental. Ocean pollution is a real issue. Some of our waste has been lost to the deep sea, some of it is still floating on the top of the ocean. Have a look at this shocking image of plastic floating in the Caribbean. More facts for you. 5 trillion pieces of microplastics are currently in the ocean, with 1 whole truckload added each minute. Jack Finch as well as Che and I were talking about how disgusting the throwaway culture we live in is today, but luckily there are apps like Buns that are looking to tackle the issues and encouraging us to trade things that we don't want anymore rather than throwing them away. But of course we need to be more aware of things like non-recyclable coffee cups and plastic bottles, if not we're literally going to poison our water, and to put it lightly, that would suck.
Starting us off at number 10 is the death sign. I feel like the title of this one should be enough to warrant it as scary, but expand on it we must. Eagle's Nest Sinkhole qualifies as one of Florida's most treacherous underwater caves, if not the most dangerous. It's a deadly diving location and it's famous for its mermaid shows, which really just means it has a bunch of lightless pockets and nooks and crannies that house a lot of rare translucent marine life. Right before the entrance of this sinkhole, middle, there's a massive death sign. I kid you not, it says stop. Prevent your death, go no further. It has the Grim Reaper on the left of it because obviously we have to add insult to injury when you're down there, and under the title it has 4 facts mostly about you dying. For example, more than 300 divers including instructors have died in caves like this one. Without cave training and cave equipment, divers can die here. It can happen to you. And my personal favorite cherry on top is there's nothing in this cave worth dying for. And I mean, they're not wrong. Some of the tunnels under there plunge 300 feet deep, so much so that people have described it as a Venus flytrap. You get in and quickly get distracted by everything around you, and you don't even realize how deep it gets and how quickly it does so. 0 to 100 real quick. It's even been dubbed the Mount Everest of cave dives. Say no more, dude. Say no more. You're not gonna find me anywhere near that. No, no. No, no, no. Okay, coming in at number 9 is the sinkhole. Now I've seen so many pictures of people literally diving into an endless black hole in the ocean, and I don't know how they do it. It's a black hole that for all you know could be hiding the last megalodon in there just waiting to pounce and eat you. I don't even get how people just free dive in there. Like, what if you don't have enough oxygen and energy to get all the way back to the surface? You're dead, mate. It's just too dark. It's too deep, it's too filled with unknowns, and frankly, it's just freaking dangerous. I think something Friedrich Nietzsche said really applies to this one. He said if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you, and I fully believe that. This picture, like I know something is staring back at this girl ready to eat her alive. Like, need I remind you guys, less than 5% of the ocean has been explored, the other 95% is ready right under her to eat her up. At number 8 we have the devil serpent, and yes, that is definitely not this creature's name, but when you look at it, that's really all that comes to mind. This snake dinosaur looking thing is in fact a moray eel, but even the website I saw this picture on titled it the malevolent moray eel. Like, that's not a compliment, mate, at all. These deep water eels are found in the South Pacific Ocean, and honestly they look like a dinosaur snake eel hybrid mutation. These little are carnivorous. They eat basically anything smaller than them, and their main predators are barracudas and sea snakes, so it's safe to say moray eels are apex predators in their own ecosystems. They have short serrated teeth, whereas others have fang-esque teeth. Imagine they were found in shallower waters and you went diving and this eel just burst out of some coral tunnel on your left, or mouth open creeping at you. I honestly can't, like, I think that'd be the first time I'd ever defecate underwater and the last time, because this thing would kill me. Filling our number 7 slot is Christ. Yes, they actually found Jesus Christ down there in the deep sea. Surprise, surprise. No, obviously they didn't. This picture was taken off the coast of Key Largo, Florida, and it's one of 3 bronze statues of Christ that are submerged. The first one was submerged off the coast of Italy back in 1954, there's another near Grenada, and finally this one that was erected in 1965. The statues were put there for many reasons. Firstly, to represent Christ in the New World, secondly as a memorial for those who had died at sea, and thirdly for those who continue to explore the depths. But how haunting is this photo? Like, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way at all before you guys come at me like Antichrist. It is a haunting image. Like, this giant Christ covered in water damage and plants just looking upwards. I mean, it's called the Christ of the Abyss, for God's sake. Like, it's haunting. It gives me the feeling like he drowned even though I know he was put there. But just the thought of scuba diving deeper and deeper into dark water and seeing this drowned figure with his arms outstretched in the middle of open water just makes my skin crawl a little bit. It could be just me though, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Now at number 6 is the fish from hell. I mean, its actual name is the black dragonfish, but I reckon my moniker fits it a lot better. This picture literally looks like this fish demon of death emerged from the parts of the ocean that are so deep they're actually in hell. Apparently the black dragonfish has light emitting organs all along its belly to trick predators since the light changes its silhouette. It even has bioluminescent lights next to each eye that either attracts mates or helps find prey. Believe me, they're not finding any mates looking like that, I can assure you. Now the thing has a few rows of razor sharp teeth, not to mention the thing has teeth on its bloody tongue. Like, why was there a need for that? There really wasn't. Like, God was just like, you know, this creature already looks like the spawn of Satan, what else can I add for, you know, just like a touch of panache? A toothed tongue? A teethed tongue. I rest my case. Let's keep fish well deep under the sea, shall we? Coming in at number 5 is the chair. Honestly, this image is haunting like all the other ones on this list. I feel like deep in the sea you expect to find horrifically ugly animals or the remains of old shipwrecks. Rarely do you expect to find a random inanimate object like a kid's chair. The chair in the photo is tiny, it's yellow, and it's scaring me. I'm wondering if I even want to know how it got there or what happened to make it get there. Was a young child thrown off the side of a yacht or cruise on their little chair? Did a family yacht ride go awry and sink and the chair is one of the only surviving items from the tragedy? Just giving me major ghost ship vibes and I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. No. At number 4 is Zemchug Canyon. Bro, I know we had deep canyons underwater, but this is like the daddy of canyons. Located in the middle of the Bering Sea, the Submarine Canyon is the deepest canyon in the world and is also tied for the widest one as well. At a vertical relief of 8,530 feet, it's deeper than the Grand Canyon by more than 2,400 feet. Like if you just look at this thing from an aerial view of the earth, it's like blue sea, land, and then just a massive cliff drop into a dark blue vortex. It's nearly 9,000 feet deep and we've only explored 2,000 feet of it. Lol, we're a joke. Stats like that just make me feel like humans are just so puny and fragile and just so breakable and useless. Just a picture of this little submarine going into the canyon, like no light goes down there, it's just this eerie white torch of the vehicle illuminating parts of the ocean that have just never been touched. What is down there? Will we ever know? I definitely hope so, but I'm a bit scared to see what we find. Is my ex down there? Let me know. Filling our number 3 slot is the goblin shark, or we can call it by its Latin name, the ugliest shark I've ever seen. This thing looks like a living corpse. I've never seen the need for something so horrific to exist until now. The living fossil is 125 million years old and is found in the deep sea. I mean, of course it is, otherwise it wouldn't be on this list. I think the unsettling part of it is the fact that goblin shark's skin is semi-transparent, so the pinkish hue on them is really just a direct look at their insides, which I don't want or need. Secondly, they have these elongated snouts and needle-like teeth, but the worst of the worst are definitely their jaws. They're highly extendable, so it can just be swimming around and just detach its jaw and eat something a few feet in front of it, and then its jaw goes back to its original place like nothing even happened. Even when they're not coming outwards, they still look barely attached to the body of the shark, which is just, it's not a nice sight. They're found in depths that basically have no light, and I don't really think this creature needs to see the light, so I feel like we can just happily coexist and never see one another. It's a deal. Now at number 2 is the Titanic. I feel like it was expected that this was going to be on the list, but honestly I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I host any ocean video and I don't include the Titanic. This event doesn't need any introduction, and if you don't know what happened with the Titanic, then I don't think you even deserve to know. So there's that. But now I'm about to tell you. In 1912, the Titanic hit an iceberg on its maiden voyage and sank, killing at least 1,500 people. The ship split into two and sank 12,415 feet below the surface, and the wreckage was only found in 1985. Water pressure at that depth is freaking lethal, and on top of that, the site is just ghostly. I feel like because we had so much information about the Titanic before it sunk, that seeing the pictures of the wreckage just make you imagine in detail what would have been going on the deck, who would have been living where the last song the band played was, just everything. The pictures just ooze its final moments, and honestly, I feel like it's haunted. I know we'll never know, but so many people died in this one event and drowned in and around the same area. I would honestly not be surprised for a second if their spirits and souls were trapped in the deepest parts of the ocean with the wreckage itself. That could honestly be a great idea for a gothic horror novel now that I think about it. I want to copyright that if possible, live, right now. Finally, at number 1 is the Pacific viperfish. You know when you're playing a fighting game and you get to the last level and you have to fight the final boss? That's what the Pacific viperfish is. We've reached our final boss, people. This fish is in the abyss of the deep sea, and during the day it can be anywhere between 200 to 5,000 meters below the ocean surface, and at night it comes up a bit more for food, but for the most part they're down pretty deep. Looks wise, they're only about 1 foot long, and they are ugly mofos. Ones I wouldn't want to encounter encounter during the day, during the night, during my lifetime? Thank you. They have huge mouths and fang-like teeth and are this iridescent dark blue silver color usually, but can be light black as well. Their teeth are transparent, which is just weird first of all and just creepy, but they also don't fit in the fish's mouth because of how big they are. So they just curl back on the outside, which obviously makes it look even more scary and monstrous. And you just don't want to see it. You don't want to see it.
At number 10, we have an octopus nursery. 8-legged alien looking things with suction cups all over their arms and beaks for mouths. Octopus are creepy looking things, and to top it all off, they can camouflage like a Navy SEAL, and they are super smart. If these are the kind of things that make your skin crawl, then just running into one of these guys would probably freak you out. Well, on the underwater expedition at the Davidson Seamount, there was a rather shocking discovery. They had a remote probe that was on the ocean floor around 10,000 feet, and they came across which seemed to be an octopus that was next to not just one, not just two, but a group of 1,000 octopuses in a nursery. They were all there laying their eggs and using the heat from the volcanic vent to keep them warm. I would hate to be the guy who accidentally steps into that crack and then gets devoured by thousands of sticky arms. But if you're at 10,000 feet underwater, you probably are already screwed. At number 9, we have the Siberian lake monster. Of course, if we're doing a list of scary things that live underwater, we have to throw a giant mysterious sea monster on here. What separates the Siberian lake monster from other more popular guys that we have seen like Loch Ness and that kind of stuff is that underwater scans have actually picked this guy up. This thing is deep in Lake Labincure, and some radar has shown that it looks like a 33-foot long creature is living there. Now this is probably just a skeleton, but if this thing is dead, it means that there was once a giant man-eating monster in this lake. I thought we were supposed to be safe in freshwater. They've nicknamed this thing the Devil, so you know he's a good time and loves company. So next time you go up to the cottage and you're swimming in the water and you feel safe, remember there might be a giant monster lurking underneath the water ready to turn you into a side dish. At number 8, we have the blue hole. Now there are several blue holes in the world. There's one in Belize, there's one in the Red Sea, there's a giant one in my heart that was left there from when Reboot ended on a cliffhanger. How are you going to end a show that so many people fell in love with on a cliffhanger? I will never trust again. Well, this one is between Cape Verde and the Caribbean islands. Scientists are really confused about this thing. It's a crack in the bottom of the ocean floor and is several thousand miles long. What's strange about this is there's no explanation of how this happened. It might have been tectonic plates moving around, but when this happened, the Earth will probably start to repair itself and there's been no sign of this. My theory is this is where Godzilla goes to sleep at night. I mean, it seems like the most logical answer. It's either that or the gateway to hell. Like, come on guys, I'm doing real science work here. At number 7, we have the Yonaguni Complex. This was discovered by scuba divers in the 1980s. I think that's the scariest part about this one. Could you imagine going scuba diving back in the 80s? The technology back then must have been a tube going up to some guy who would blast fresh air down to you using a bicycle pump. I don't even think they had decompression sickness figured out back then. The chances of you coming up the bends was probably super high. Well, if it wasn't for a few divers in Japan who were willing to sacrifice it all to look at some cool stuff, we wouldn't know anything about the Yonaguni Complex. It's still a mystery as to what this thing is. It looks like some temples that might have existed thousands of years ago, but when the ice age decided to melt, it would have covered this entire area. This could be why an entire civilization got plunged underwater. Or the temple could have been on a cliff, and then when a massive earthquake hit, it knocked the temple into the water. But like everything in life, there are some haters who say this whole thing is just a natural rock formation. Some people just want to ruin everything. At number 6, we have Anacorra Cista Twista. One of the reasons why the underwater world is such a mystery is because we find things like this in there. Sure, there are beautiful things down there like bright fish and chubby marine mammals, but there's also the unknown, unidentified organisms like Anacorra Cista Twista, which should be the name of an 80s hair metal band. But what is this thing? Well, it's a protist. And what is a protist, you may ask? Well, it's an organism that doesn't belong to any animal group, fungus, or plant group. What does that mean? I really have no idea, you guys. I think it means it could be an alien. Some alien came down to Earth for a swim and then scraped its knee on some coral, and now we have alien creatures running around the ocean, probably waiting for you to pee so it can swim up your pee hole and then work its way into your brain. It's really the only logical answer. At number 5, we have the Bimini Road. How were the pyramids made? Was it aliens coming down to share their technology and secrets with us, or was it just thousands upon thousands of slaves who sacrificed their lives and their spines to build them? Well, we don't know and we may never never know, but the Bimini Road is another one of these mysteries. It's off the coast of the Bahamas, and it looks like it could have been a pathway that was placed perfectly with giant slabs of rock. Similar to the way the pyramids were made, it seems that these large slabs of rock were too large to be moved by man, and also like the pyramids, these giant slabs were also perfectly placed so well. So where does everyone's mind go when something like this happens? Well, magic or aliens. The logical answer is that this is a natural phenomenon of the water moving and hitting the rocks to make these formations, but people think that this was made using advanced technology from aliens and could have been the road to Atlantis. Honestly, I like the Atlantis theory much better. It's more fun. At number 4, we have colossal squid. Yeah, this thing is a big no thanks for me. So everyone always talks about how there might be sea monsters out there, but this thing actually exists. There's never been one caught alive, but several have washed onto shores dead, and they are massive. The largest one ever discovered was 45 feet long, and it was dead. So you know there was an even bigger one out there that killed this guy. They don't even have suckers on their tentacles, they have hooks. Let me say that again. This squid has 10 giant arms covered in hooks. This thing is straight out of a horror movie. Scientists aren't even sure what something this big eats. They think it probably feeds on whales or your deepest, darkest fears. I wouldn't be surprised if the colossal squid works part-time as a gatekeeper for hell. It makes me think that the old Greek stories about the Kraken might have been real. At number 3, we have underwater circles. Giant formations of circles that are formed underwater, and nobody knows how they got there. These mysteries were discovered off the coast of North Carolina, Florida, and Belize. Now, what are they? Like many things on this list, myself and the entire scientific community have no idea. But here are some theories. Maybe they were formed naturally by either two things, water currents or some sort of animal mating ritual. Another idea is that these things were made by ancient civilizations before the Ice Age. All these things would have been above ground and might have been art left over by some old-timey tribes. And the third theory is that they look kind of like a bullseye, so it might be some sort of nuclear missile target, and if you hit it hard enough, the explosion will cause some sort of major natural disaster like an earthquake or tsunami, or if we're lucky, both. At number 2, we have Megalodon. If you have a fear of sharks, you're gonna love this one. Megalodon was a prehistoric shark that was even bigger than the giant hooked tentacle beast that was earlier on this list. If you've already forgotten about the colossal squid, it clocked in at around 45 feet long, where Megalodon was closer to 60 feet long. It was a 60-foot shark that could probably rip a blue whale in half in one bite. Well, maybe not that, but it was still a gargantuan creature with teeth the size of Brock Lesnar's fists. This thing wouldn't even chew you, it would just swallow you whole and then fart your skeleton out into the dark, cold ocean. At number 1 on our list, we have giant eyeball. A mysterious giant eyeball washed onto the shore of a Florida beach back in October of 2012. I don't know any other kind of giant eyeball other than a mysterious one. There's no super common regular giant eyeball just lying around. But this is also Florida. This is the state where people smoke crack at weddings and kiss alligators on the lips, so maybe it's a little more common over there. Well, this giant eyeball was found by Gino Cavacci, and he didn't know what the hell to make of it, so he took it home and then stuck it in his freezer. Then he called the cops, and the cops came in and told him, "We don't do giant eyeballs on the beach. You have to call the wildlife people." And then he called the wildlife people, and they were like, "What the hell is that?" And he was like, "I don't know. I brought it to you guys to try and figure out what it is." And then some people were like, "Maybe it's a sea monster," and other people were like, "No, it's probably from a marlin." And I think in the end, no one really knew what the hell it was. But just so you know, there's giant eyeballs out there just laying around the beach sometime.
Starting us off at number 10, we have sweet wrappers. Some of you might be confused and not know what that is, and if you are one of those people, they are more commonly known as candy wrappers, or trash, or even rubbish, or even garbage. I think you get it now. Anyway, along with that other plastic bag that we talked about in the first video, candy wrappers and tons of other human garbage were found in the depths of the Marianas Trench. The deepest spot on Earth is still not untouched by humans. This is a sad discovery that scientists were not thrilled about, but it was also a huge wake-up call too. So let's continue to be careful with our trash and where we put it. The plastic bag was one thing, but when I found out that that was just the beginning of the human trash that they found down there, that was a little upsetting. So stop eating sweets and candy. I'm just kidding. I know we pretty much can't do that, but just be careful where we put our garbage.
In our number 9 spot today we have sea pigs. These guys are a genus of sea cucumber, but they have these little tube-like legs, which is why they look super weird. Not that regular sea cucumbers look exceptionally normal, but these ones look even weirder than the regular ones. They like to live on the seafloor where they move through the sediment searching for their next meal. They eat by extracting tiny little particles of organic matter that have fallen from closer to the surface of the ocean down to the mud on the seafloor. They're like the best little Roombas. Sea pigs tend to measure somewhere around 15 centimeters or 4 to 6 inches long, and they live at a depth of somewhere between 1,200 to 5,000 meters deep in the sea. These guys have their own special little defense mechanism, and that is how their skin carries a natural poison, which would make them a less than ideal meal for their predators. It is quite imperative that these guys stay in their deep sea habitat because they are specifically built for that, and when brought up closer to the surface, they disintegrate.
Coming in at our number 8 spot, we have robots. Say, what? Are the AIs finally taking over? Are aliens actually just ancient robots like the Autobots and Decepticons? What is going on down there? Well, none of those that we know of, but the reason why we have been able to search and discover new areas of our oceans at such great depths is because scientists and researchers have started using robots, or more commonly known as rovers down at the bottom of the ocean. Just like the rovers we use on the moon and Mars, these underwater rovers can go where humans cannot, as well as retrieve materials that we would never be able to retrieve by ourselves. So as nervous as I am about the robots taking over, I have to tip my hat to them in this regard. So thanks, robo dudes.
In our number 7 spot today we have the Hydromedusa. This fancy pants jellyfish came as quite a surprise during a robotic exploration of the Mariana Trench in 2016. What at first looked like some sort of alien spacecraft turned out to be a new unidentified species of jellyfish. At a first sight, this jelly had its tentacles splayed out as if it was ready to catch some prey. Apparently the tentacles act as a sort of netting to ensnare and then subdue their potential prey, but this jelly quickly calmed down and continued floating on by. This guy was found near the Enigma seamount at a depth of 3,700 meters. The really interesting thing about this jelly is in its bell. While the bell itself is translucent, inside are glowing red and yellow bulbs of light. The glowing bulbs of light really do give it an otherworldly appearance, and it is simply amazing to look at.
At number 6, we have a retired US Navy officer. Yeah, you heard me. Victor Vescovo is a retired US Navy officer and is one of the 70 people on Earth who have earned the Explorer's Grand Slam title. After Vescovo retired from the Navy, he became a private equity investor with a humongous interest in exploring the wildest places on Earth. He has completed the 7 summits exploring the highest points on Earth from each continent, and most recently completed the 5 Deeps expedition, where he visited the 5 deepest points on Earth, one of them being, of course, the Marianas Trench. In 2019, in the expedition known as the Challenger Deep, Vescovo and his team visited the deepest point on Earth during that expedition at 11 kilometers below the ocean's surface and earned Guinness World Records for their explorations. Vescovo helped fund to hire the amazing team he had on board, as well as to build the latest high-tech submarine to reach such depths. They were at an area of ocean that is 1,000 times the pressure of the surface. Big ouch. So if you want to get deep, I suggest you take Victor Vescovo with you.
Coming in at number 5, at our halfway mark, we have comb jellies. Comb jellies are one of the most beautiful creatures I've ever seen in my life, and that is mostly due to their combs. The combs I'm talking about are actually plates of fused cilia, which help these jellies propel themselves through the deep waters of the Mariana Trench like their own little boat oars. There are other creatures who also have combs, but these jellies are the largest creatures with them. Why these jellies are so beautiful is because the combs create a sort of rainbow effect because of the light being scattered in different directions because the cilia are moving. Comb jellies only have one pair of tentacles, but sometimes it appears to be more, but that is because their tentacles can branch out. These jellies don't sting, and instead their tentacles are used as a sort of fishing line to help them catch their prey.
Coming in at number 4 is James Cameron. Wait, hold on a sec. Olivia, did I just say Academy Award winning director James Cameron was found at the bottom of the Marianas Trench?
You did!
I did! Yes, I did. I'm so dumb. Oh my god, hashtag fire Dewey. Along with making one of his most famous movies ever about an old boat, it was also his lifelong dream of exploring the depths of the Marianas Trench. This guy just can't get enough of the underwater life, and honestly, I can't blame him because it looks super cool. Anyway, back in 2012, Cameron with the team of scientists visited the trench at a depth of 11 kilometers as well. Wait, isn't that the exact same depth as Victor Vescovo? Yeah, kinda. Vescova was able to reach just a bit further than Cameron, so this time the Oscar goes to Victor. Sorry, Jimbo. But Cameron also helped design a 24 underwater submersible sub called the Deep Sea Challenger in the shape of Titanic. Just kidding, that would be insensitive. The windows on the sub were 9.5 inches thick, so they could withstand the immense pressure. While down there, they discovered 68 new species, mostly of bacteria, but also a couple invertebrates as well. So there you go. James Cameron is just not a one-trick pony.
In our number 3 spot today, we have the barrel eye. I can talk about creatures that look otherworldly all day, and while the Mariana Trench is full of them, the barrel eye is definitely nearing the top of that list. These guys are also known as spookfish, and they have these large, protruding, telescopic eyes that are enclosed in a transparent dome of soft tissue. That was a long way of saying they have a see-through head, and it is so weird to look at. These guys can't be taken out of their deep sea environment because they are unable to withstand the change in pressure, so for a while after their initial discovery, the only way people who had seen them in the deep sea could show anyone else what they looked like was through drawings. Imagine trying to tell someone that you found a fish with a see-through head, but you have no evidence to prove it. These guys are usually found motionless, just kind of floating in one spot, as they don't tend to move around a bunch, at a depth of around 600 to 800 meters in the ocean.
Coming in at our number 2 spot is the unknown. There is still plenty of unknown left in the Marianas Trench. Countless people have now explored down there, but the water is just above freezing and it is extremely dark, and the pressure is an immense 8 tons per square inch. Holy burst eardrums, Batman! With all the tech that we have today, we are still doing all that we can to find new ways of exploring the ocean depths for longer and with more visibility. It's hard to say just how much we have really uncovered when we can only go down there for so long and with just our little rovers, subs, flashlights, and Hollywood directors. Either way, I can't wait to see where scientists take us on this next one, and who knows, maybe one day I will get my confirmed sea monster that I've been waiting for my entire freaking life.
In our number 1 spot today, we have the predatory tunicate. The predatory tunicate is like the Venus flytrap of the deep sea. These guys are one of the most unique creatures I've ever learned about personally, because I don't know any other animal that is like them. They start out life kind of like tadpoles, and then they swim until they find their perfect spot, either along a canyon wall or on the sea floor. Once they've found their spot, they plant themselves in place using a natural adhesive that they produce. Once planted, they will undergo a huge change, and this is where they will stay for the rest of their lives. They're super picky about where exactly they make their homes, because it will be where they stay, and because they need to make sure that both the chemicals in the water in that area as well as the temperature of the water is just right. Like the 3 little bears of the deep sea. Unfortunately, if these guys get moved from the location they choose to make their home, they will die, so it is imperative that they are left alone. They basically wait for food to drift on by, and like a Venus flytrap, when they get their meal, their mouths will snap shut until they're done digesting. The predatory tunicate is a point of study in the medical world because they actually have been known to help with some more serious medical conditions, which is always an incredible thing. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have this haunting call. Whales truly are some of the coolest animals on Earth, and humpback whales are no exception. The males of the species are known for their songs, which last from 10 to 20 minutes and are actually pretty complex. They will repeat these songs for hours at a time, and it honestly isn't exactly known why they sing these songs at all. All the males in the group will produce the same song, and it will change seasonally. The females are also able to produce noise, but for some reason it is only the males who seem to produce these long songs. It is unclear how the whales even produce these sounds, however, because they don't actually have vocal cords. This is all super cool and interesting, but the whole reason you're here is for the sound, so let's take a listen to a more haunting track released by the humpback whale. Okay, so please tell me I'm not alone in thinking that that was the most beautifully haunting sound I've ever heard come from the sea. But also imagine being alone in the ocean, not knowing what that was, and then hearing it. Probably pretty terrifying, right? At least we're all safe here in YouTube land. In our number 9 spot today, we have this marine chorus. Okay, so out of context, if I played you this sound, what would you think it is? Definitely not something underwater, right? Well, as it turns out, this sound was indeed captured under the water, and these are the sounds of fish calls. While I always expected the chorus of marine animals to sound a little more similar to the stylings of Sebastian the crab, apparently that isn't even close. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know that most fish had calls, but it turns out that our human ears just can't perceive all of the hoots, moans, barks, and chirps that take place in the vast seas. This recording actually helped scientists realize that there are fish who sing together in a chorus every day at dusk and dawn. There have now been around 800 species of fish that have been identified and confirmed to make some form of noise, and apparently some fish even engage in shouting matches in noisier parts of the ocean, which is kind of hilarious to imagine. I guess on the list of creepy noises, this one is less creepy and more just informative. In our number 8 spot today we have the whistle. This is a sound that was first recorded in 1997 by the NOAA and was the source of many mysteries for years while people speculated about what may have caused the sound. While it still isn't exactly clear, it is now believed that the sound may have come from an underwater volcano eruption. If you didn't know, underwater or submarine volcanoes are located in all oceans on our Earth, and they're extremely interesting. There are certain kinds of marine animals that only exist near these extreme environments. Many submarine volcanoes are located near the areas of tectonic plate formations, which are also known as mid-ocean ridges. There's a YouTube user called Some Canadian, and they left a comment on a video of this whistle sound that pretty much sums it up exactly. First, we'll listen to the sound played at 10 times the original speed. The comment read, quote, "It could be the sound of something moving through tunnels. 1. Volcanic eruptions and gases. 2. Something big and hungry. You choose." I think they might really be onto something there. In our number 7 spot today we have bloop. Why are all of the weirdest ocean sounds first recorded in 1997? Bloop is another one that came from that year, and it was a loud and unusual sound that was placed as occurring several times off the southern coast of South America, and it was so loud that it could be heard over 5,000 kilometers away. At first, researchers were confused because, while the sound was actually similar to known sounds of living creatures, it was just way too loud that not even the blue whale, the largest living creature, could have produced it. So what is it then? Well, as it turns out, it is in fact not the Kraken, and instead it is actually consistent with ice quakes that are generated by large icebergs as they crack and fracture. It seems like this sound, going with that explanation, doesn't really make sense, but hey, I'm no scientist. But here's the sound for you to judge for yourself. In our number 6 spot today we have the Western Pacific biotwang. In 2014, researchers and scientists heard weird sounds coming from the Mariana Trench, which, for the record, seems like the worst place for there to be strange noises coming from. For years, experts couldn't pin down this sound, and it was dubbed the Western Pacific biotwang, and while there is now a theory that was proposed by researchers from Oregon State University, they have also said that they might be entirely wrong. First, for reference, here's a little clip of the sound I'm talking about. Okay, so if you're like me, my mind immediately went to something alien related or some sort of creature that perhaps we haven't yet discovered. I mean, this is the Mariana Trench we're talking about. The theory put forward by the Oregon State researchers was that perhaps this may be a new type of baleen whale call. Okay, that's probably the best of all of the options, but I really don't like when someone tells me the answer to a scientific mystery only to tell me that that might not actually be the answer at all. While the low part of the sound would make sense to attribute to the baleen whale, it's the end high-pitched twangy part that would be incredibly unique. The wide range of frequencies in the sound are what continues to baffle those who are trying to find the source of this mysterious sound. In our number 5 spot today we have Julia. Julia is a sound that was recorded in 1999 by the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, which I've already talked about today. It sounds like it could be straight out of a horror movie, so considering it was a sound that came from our ocean and at first no one could tell where it had come from, it really was quite frightening. The sound has now likely been demystified, as researchers are pretty positive they know the origin of it. It is now believed that this sound was caused by an iceberg running aground off Antarctica. The sound, however, was insanely loud. It was so loud that it could be heard over the entire equatorial Pacific Ocean autonomous hydrophone array. Researchers were later able to narrow down what they believe may have been the point where the sound originated, although they've never actually been able to pinpoint it exactly. Most of the time when people hear the Julia sound, they hear it sped up at 16 times the original speed, but today we are going to listen to a clip of the sound at regular speed because I think it is much more eerie this way. In our number 4 spot today we have knock. Okay, this is one that I'll admit was not captured by a submarine, but it was still underwater and it truly is terrifying. A few years ago, a beluga whale named Nock, who was unfortunately in captivity, was recorded as he swam below the water. Beluga whales have been called the canaries of the sea, and for good reason, but Nock really wanted to up the ante and instead blessed us all with this sound. Nock had this uncanny ability to mimic the rhythm and tone of human voices, and it truly is kind of frightening. It of course is also a little sad, as part of this was probably because he spent most of his life being forced to listen to humans speak because he was being held in captivity. Before this recording of Nock, the voices of belugas and their sometimes human-like sounds have been talked about, but Nock was the first time it was recorded, and honestly, I kind of wish it hadn't been. In our number 3 spot today we have the bioduck. Since the 1960s, this sound has absolutely stumped researchers who heard it. This sound was basically what the name attributed to it would suggest. It sounded like some sort of mechanical duck. For decades, researchers would hear this sound and it would often be heard and recorded again in the spring and winters. After all of these years though, it seems as though the answers to this mysterious sound are finally coming to light. In 2013, researchers attached sensors that collect acoustic data to 2 whales. One of those tags recorded for 18 hours and the other for 8, and the whales they were attached to were traveling with other whales in groups of 5 to 40, and they were all eating basically the entire time. Throughout this time, with the tags on the whales, there were a total of 32 calls heard, and this data is what led researchers to finally understand where the bioduck sound was coming from. As it turns out, this mysterious sound was actually the call of the minke whale. Researchers still aren't exactly clear as to what the call means to the whales, but it was a fantastic discovery that finally closed an almost 50-year-old scientific mystery. In our number 2 spot today we have upsweep. We all know how little we know about the ocean, and that also includes what kind of creatures lie in it. So while this mysterious sound out of context probably wouldn't be that freaky, when put into this situation it becomes quite a bit more eerie. This sound is referred to as upsweep, and it was caught when the Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory started its sound surveillance system in August of 1991. The sound is apparently more seasonal, with its peaks in spring and fall, but it is unclear if the changing of seasons is responsible for this sound, or if it's coming from something that lurks in the ocean and remains undiscovered. Just for reference, here's a clip of that sound played at 20 times the original speed. It is possible that this sound could be coming from underwater volcanic activity, but it is also possible that it's not, so who really knows? In our number 1 spot today we have an earthquake. Okay, so to add another creepy Mariana Trench sound to this list, we have one that was taken from the bottom of the Challenger Deep. In fact, it was the first ever sound recording to be taken from the bottom of the Challenger Deep, so it's a pretty cool scientific advancement as well as a terrifying sound. Despite the crushing pressures and the fact that there's no sunlight, the Challenger Deep is actually pretty noisy, and that is because of the fact that sound travels a really long way underwater, which ends up kind of turning the Challenger Deep into a sort of echo chamber of oceanic sounds. So while the recording was able to pick up things like the sound of a boat almost 11 kilometers overhead and the sounds of whale calls, they were also able to pick up the sound of a magnitude 5 earthquake rumbling near Guam on July 16th, 2015. Gonna lie, while being one of the scariest things I've ever heard, this is also one of the coolest things I've ever heard in my life too. Science really is just so cool sometimes.
Number 10. Yellow Brick Road. Deep sea divers may have found the road to Atlantis this year. Yeah, this is a good one. May 2022, this bizarre path was spotted in the Pacific Ocean after an exploration vessel, Nautilus, caught the rocky formation next to Hawaii. The exploration team said in a recent interview with WION News that our corps of exploration have witnessed incredible and unique fascinating geological formations while diving on the Liliuokalani Ridge. The 90-degree fractures are most likely the result of eruptions from long ago. So, but volcanic activity, it's not a yellow brick road after all, but it is cool to look at. This area of the ocean is the largest fully protected conservation area in the world, and this explains why. Literally, there's Wizard of Oz stuff happening below. No one wants to tell us anything. Covering more than 580,000 square miles. So far, we've only discovered 3% of the seafloor, so I'm sure there's many more discoveries coming our way. Number 9. Norfolk's Royal Shipwreck. Okay, so this initial discovery happened way back in 2007, believe it or not, but it was a secret until recently. Now I'm here to tell you all the tea. On May 6th in 1682, a ship called the Gloucester got stuck in a sandbank off the coast of Norfolk, and then an hour later, she sank. Now one of these passengers was the future King James II of England. He escaped in a small boat, thankfully, quick decision that literally changed the course of history. These two diving brothers found the ship back in 2007, but now it's official, now it's confirmed, so now we could talk about it. Just last month, it was officially announced. This was the lost ship indeed. Maritime expert Claire Jowett calls this recent discovery the single most significant historic maritime discovery since the raising of the Mary Rose. Number 8. Crusader Sword. Me, personally, I'm a shell guy. Love the shells, maybe rocks every now and then. I see a nice shell, I'm going for it, okay? I don't care who's living in there. I gotta listen. Sounds of the sea. But a sword that once belonged to a Crusader knight? I mean, sure, that's fun too. Shells, swords, they're both good. An Israeli scuba diver, not even that far experienced, ended up stumbling across one of the coolest discoveries back in 2021. Shlomi Katzin was diving off the Carmel coast in Israel, and as well as a badass sword, the diver also found anchors, ancient stones, pottery fragments, all from around 900 years ago. See, me myself, I wouldn't even notice this. It's covered in barnacles. It doesn't even look like a sword, other than the shape. Maybe the odd shape of a sword, that's it. That's a great find. No submerged curses, no Mayan ruins, just a nice cool sword. We love that. Number 7. The Great Lakes Griffin. Back in 2018 in Lake Michigan, diver Steve Libert found what he believed was the holy grail of Great Lakes shipwrecks. The Griffin sank back in 1679. Divers have been searching for this beauty for years and years. Now, as a kid, Steve Libert was talking about the shipwreck when his history teacher stopped and said, "Hey, who knows? Maybe one of you will find the Griffin." Imagine that. Your grade 8 teacher tells you that somebody might find a ship, and that somebody ended up being you. Fascinating. So at 67 years old, he discovered the wreck. It was 2018, but his research began 40 years prior. It's a long time coming. Libert began diving in 1981. Took a very long time to track this one down. So if you're in any Great Lakes, keep your eyes open for, 50-foot long ships from the late 1600s. Number 6. Magnificent Alien. Okay, tinfoil hats, put them on folks, now's the time. In a list of deep sea discoveries, how don't I talk about this little guy? While the rest of the world was in panic mode, a new sea sponge was discovered back in 2020. It was named Advena magnifica, which translates to magnificent alien. Yeah, this sponge literally gets its name because it looks like ET. And to be fair, it looks like an alien. It looks like a literal extraterrestrial. An ROV found this sample over 6,000 feet deep in the Pacific Ocean. They found it in what they called a forest of weird, which is a cool nickname, I guess. Cristiana Castello Branco, the researcher who found this deep sea squishy, explains the discovery in an NOAA interview, saying that all these organisms are intricately connected. By documenting and describing marine diversity, we are building a better understanding of life and the impact of humans on Earth. In this case, in the ocean. End quote. This little guy could be the key to humanity's survival. I feel it. He looks confident, doesn't he? He looks like he knows what's up. Number 5. Comb stars. Ocean life is by far the scariest thing out there. We have no idea what lies in our oceans, and that scares the shit out of me, honestly. We discover some crazy fish every single year. Deep sea fish with bioluminescence are for sure aliens, while others are just natural predators that we haven't seen yet. Like the comb star, for example, which is a starfish that contains tetrodotoxin. Tetrodotoxin is a deadly neurotoxin that can cause paralysis almost instantly. Per every gram of comb star flesh, there's enough toxins to take out 500 mice. And before you ask, no, we don't have an antidote yet. So avoid all the oceans, please. Number 4. Toxic waste. We mentioned in this list a 900-year-old Crusader sword. That was a good time, but not all discoveries are the most amazing, okay? Many deep sea ROV trips are not ideal. We don't want to discover what's going on down there. We don't want to know. We don't always find a mammoth tusk or a glow-in-the-dark shark. Sometimes we find this. Sometimes we find barrels of waste. This dump site here was discovered off the coast of LA, 3,000 feet deep. ROVs found around 27,000 barrels of toxic waste. Yeah, the 2021 discovery was deemed staggering. I'll definitely agree with that one. You can literally see this aura of toxic waste coming from all these spots. It's brutal, this is horrible. No fish in sight, wonder why. Number 3. The deepest shipwreck. The USS Johnston was a US Navy destroyer which sank during the Battle of Samar in 1944. It sank after a battle with a large fleet of Japanese warships. Victor Vescovo, who is one of the few people who has made the dive into the Marianas Trench, was one of the people who first stumbled upon the remains of said sunken warship. The ship's remains were first found in 2019 and was known as the deepest known shipwreck, as it was found 6,456 meters deep in the Philippine Sea in the Pacific Ocean. We now have a new record holder, believe it or not. The world's deepest shipwreck was discovered 4 miles underwater in the Philippines. The US destroyer sunk during World War II and it sits at the depth of 22,916 feet. The USS Samuel B. Roberts, or the Sammy B, probably won't be beat record-wise. This is extremely rare and so deep. I can't even fathom how deep this is. Number 2, Mayan caves. Back in 2018, a diver was exploring flooded caves in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. They were diving around and saw this peculiar opening, so they just had to check it out, right? The divers accidentally discovered one of the largest underwater cave systems in the world. That ought to be fun. It's better than a sword, I guess. A team of divers then explored many kilometers of Mayan history. Bones everywhere, a lot of bones. National Geographic, of course, got involved and explains that these skulls, given the amount found, were more than likely involved in some sort of ancient sacrifice. Yeah, they found an ancient burial site underwater. See ya, I'd go right back up so fast. Many elongated skulls were found, suggesting that the ancient Mayans were up to something a little darker last time these caves were occupied. If curses are real, there's probably a few in here, so avoid them. And finally, number 1, a cursed tablet. We'll end this list off with a super recent discovery. It's small, but it is mighty. This tablet here was discovered and it comes in at just 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. Very small. Discovered in 2022 in the West Bank, this artifact has historians scratching their heads because it's a couple hundred years older than any Hebrew text previously. It predates the Dead Sea Scrolls by 1,350 years. These ancient letters, once translated, mean to call on to anybody who breaks this curse. There's around 40 proto-alphabetic letters, early Hebrew writing, all folded onto this tiny little lead tablet. Also, the fact that this small tablet mentions the curse of Yahweh is pretty alarming. The sediment comes from excavations done in the 80s on Mount Ebal, so many believe that this is from the ancient stone structure Joshua's altar, which would make sense. The tablet was dated to around 1200 BC, and the chemical isotopes in the tablet suggest that it's from mountainous ranges in Greece, or possibly from the Mountain of Curse. Yeah, the Mountain of Curse, that's a hard pass for me. That's worse than Death Mountain in Zelda. I'm out.
Starting us off at number 10 is True North. Very few places on Earth will ever actually point to true north. What is true north? True north is the direction that points exactly towards the geographic North Pole. Being that there are next to no markers and obviously no landmarks in the middle of the ocean, when GPS and other high-tech systems go awry, ships and other craft are forced to use their compasses as a way to stay on track. Compasses operate usually by pointing towards magnetic north, as the compass aligns with Earth's magnetic field. Magnetic north can shift depending on the change in the Earth's magnetic core, which operators and sailors are prepared for, thus creating a huge issue when operators and sailors traveling through the mysterious triangle discover that their compass is no longer working properly, because it's pointing to true north instead of magnetic north. I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've ever had to use a compass, and I think no matter what my compass reads, I would still be lost at sea. So Bermuda doesn't sound like the greatest vacay spot, but let's continue to see what's in store before we make up our mind. At number 9, we have the deepest spot on Earth. So we always talk about how much we want to keep exploring space and we want to get to know our own universe, but you know what's really funny to me? We still have barely scraped the surface, or under the surface, for exploring our own ocean. One of those places being the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is home to one of the deepest spots on Earth. Underneath the surface, the topography of the seafloor goes from a gentle sloping continental shelf to a drop of a few hundred feet to another drop of a few who knows how many thousand feet. Many disappearances that have been reported in the Bermuda Triangle could have their answers laying somewhere at the bottom of these deep trenches. But until we actually start exploring our oceans just as much as we explore space, just like whatever lays at the bottom, we will be left in the dark. At our number 8 spot, we have methane gas. This gas is colorless, odorless, highly flammable, and one of the main components in natural gas, which we all use to generate electricity and heat our homes all around the world. But guess what? It's also in the Bermuda Triangle. Due to decomposing sea organisms, scientists have discovered large concentrations of methane gas trapped in the ocean floor. Methane accumulates as concentrated methane ice, and if and when a pocket ruptures, the gas rockets upwards towards the surface without any warning or notice to those sailing above. above. If a ship were to be in the area of the blowout, it could possibly sink because the water would become much less dense and sediment could quickly cover it as the wreck lands on the sea floor. As of right now, there is no proof that this is the reason for any of the missing ships that have been reported in the Bermuda Triangle, but then again, how would we ever know? At our number 7 spot, we have Rogue Waves. Now, does that not sound like a great band name or what? Due to the location of the Bermuda Triangle in the Atlantic Ocean, storms can come from all directions. They can come from Mexico, from the equator, or the east side of the Atlantic. These storms, of course, make major waves reaching up to 30 feet or 10 meters tall. But what happens when they all come together at the exact same moment? These rogue waves can reach up to sizes of 100 feet or 30 meters tall. Engineers at the University of Southampton built models of different sized ships and simulated their own rogue waves in a wave tank for the small scale ships. What happened? These engineers discovered that these ships could indeed sink. The bigger the ship, the easier it was to sink because big ships are designed to be supported in the front by the top of a wave while the back is supported by another. But if hit by a rogue wave, those big ships, guess what? They snap in two. The small ones can sometimes survive if they hit the wave bow on, but most times will just get swallowed up completely. Rogue waves, hopefully not coming to an ocean near you. At our number 6 spot, we have electronic fog. So far, out of the many distress calls claiming to come from an electronic fog, these stories and events have been labeled as supernatural and not taken seriously. But there are reports from actual pilots who have flown through these strange phenomena, and it's wild. Veteran pilot Bruce Gernon reports that when he was flying with his father in his classic Bonanza plane back in 1970, about 3 miles off Andros Island, an elliptical shaped cloud began forming in front of them. Before the father and son could escape the path of this mysterious cloud, they were engulfed and had a tunnel form all the way around them. And while in the cloud flying at 10,000 feet, they reported seeing lines in the tunnel spiraling counterclockwise while propelling them forward. They then started feeling the effects of zero gravity and all of their navigational systems started to fail. Fortunately, this electronic spiraling fog tunnel dissipated and they found themselves right over Miami Beach and were once again able to pick up radar. The next strange thing? They traveled 100 miles in 30 minutes less time than usual. Similar stories to Gernon's have been reported as well, but with no real answers to how or why. Some suspect it could be something related to the Hutchison effect, but as of right now the electronic fog is still a mystery. Coming in at our number 5 midway spot is the once infamous mythical creature proven to be real, the giant squid. Aside from the many strange events and things found in the Bermuda Triangle, some have reported seeing a giant octopus, or octopi if there are more than one. I wonder. Now, as of right now, there is no such thing as these creatures, but giant squid are indeed a real animal, and 2 Japanese scientists believe they caught one on camera. In 2005, 2 Japanese scientists spotted a giant squid aggressively taking baited lines. Normally, these creatures are not known to be in this area of ocean, but the footage says differently. These giant squid can reach up to 150 feet. Seeing the aggressive nature of this creature, as well as the size, it is no wonder some believe that they could be responsible for some of the disappearing ships. Speaking of, coming in our top 4 spot, we have ships that have gone missing. As I said earlier, there are more than 50 ships that are reported to have gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle over the years. One of the most notorious ones being the USS Cyclops. One of the Navy's largest fuel ships went missing back in March 1918. This ship was carrying 10,800 tons of manganese ore with 309 crew members on board. Only one message was received from the ship during its voyage from Brazil to Baltimore, and it reported no trouble whatsoever while it was out on the sea. But then, it sailed through the Bermuda Triangle. The ship never made it to its destination, was never found. Not only was the ship never found, but also no debris or crew members either. There was no distress call received anywhere. One of the largest ships in the Navy and everything on board and everyone on board gone missing in a flash with no explanation? That's scary. Starting us off at our number 3 spot is planes gone missing. Over 20 aircraft just like ships have gone missing over the years, and some of these reports are quite recent too. One of the latest being just last year in May when a small twin-engine plane mysteriously went missing. Same thing as the USS Cyclops, those aboard started their flight with no complications whatsoever, and there were no distress calls reported or anything out of the ordinary. Once again, no wreckage, crew, or any signs of any explanation can be found. But maybe our next one on the list will help. At our number 2 spot, we have UFO sightings. If you have been keeping up to date with any of the alien news lately, you will know that there have been more than a couple of sightings all over North America in the last few years. One of them taking place over the Bermuda Triangle, April 28, 2020, reported by not just anyone, but the United States Air Force. Many of the United States Air Force members have come out quite recently with more and more sightings, with some of them dating all the way back to the 1970s, right over top of the Bermuda Triangle. I hear more and more alien information every day, and I am loving it. If I ever have a major reason to go to Bermuda, it's to see some aliens. Come on, who's coming with me? Finally, coming in at our number 1 spot is something we're going to have to grab our proton packs for, because our final and weirdest thing found in Bermuda is ghost ships. Back in 1881, the infamous Ellen Austin ship experienced a ghost ship in an area of the Bermuda Triangle before things went awfully awry. The crew of the Ellen Austin discovered the ship fully stocked but with no crew on board or anywhere to be seen. Seeing an opportunity for a free ship with supplies, part of the Ellen Austin crew took over the ship and prepared to sail back with the ships side by side. Just then, an unexpected storm came out of nowhere and totally engulfed the 2 ships. After the storm was over the next day, both ships came out of the Terror, but no crew was anywhere to be seen on the picked up ghost ship. Just then, crew members and captain of the Ellen Austin came aboard once again and then got swallowed up by a mysterious fog. And once the fog cleared, the ghost ship completely vanished along with everything and everyone. I hate to say it, but I guess that's karma, and she's always gonna come for you.